see with lights in the ceiling are hot mics. So if you are talking, it will pick up your conversations and they'll end up on the recording. So just a word of caution. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All set. Good evening. I'll call to order this April 22nd, 2025 Plan and Zoning meeting, Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. Start with our meeting minutes from April 8th and April 15th. Commissioner Ford is running a little late, so who's next up? Ms. Harrigan, who's next up for alternates?
I believe it's probably Commissioner Collins.
Commissioner Collins, you were up to speed on both meetings?
Yeah, I was here.
We'll see how long Commissioner Ford takes. Maybe you'll stay in for the next one, Pansy Road, but the very least, let's get the meeting minutes. I'll take something out of order in a second, but can I have a motion on the meeting minutes, please? Commissioner Corsillo.
Move to approve.
Second, Commissioner Harrison. Commissioner Corsillo.
They look good.
Commissioner Harrison.
Look good to me, thank you.
Correction from, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, they don't reflect that I was at both the 4/8 and 4/15 meetings, so I need to be added to the attendance.
Thank you for catching that.
All right, can we make friendly motion just to amend that?
Guess I'll allow it.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
You can
Sure.
check the video.
All right. Motion to approve with the amendment from Commissioner Levy. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Passes unanimously. I wanted to take one thing out of order, in talking to a few of the commissioners to see their stance on old business, section 3, zoning regulation amendments, and site permit and coastal site plan application of 441 Post Road LLC. So that's 3A and 3B. Myself, I would like additional time to consider this. I know we've been taking a little bit longer than usual, but I think it's warranted. I think in polling some of the commission members individually, I think that is a similar sentiment. So I would suggest tabling this, and I would suggest tabling it to a date certain of 2 weeks from today, which is the first week in May. I don't have the calendar.
May 6th?
May 6th. It's a special meeting, which we haven't been voting on things in special meetings, but in looking ahead and seeing the schedule, setting this down, because I think this will be a long discussion, and knowing that this is gonna happen. Obviously, we can change our minds should something come up there, but I think maybe instead of it just showing up every time with such a big application, maybe having an idea that we will start substantive discussions and see where they go in a certain date would be helpful. And then we probably should start to use special meetings as well. So that's my thought. If anybody open to a motion to table to May 6th, if the commission is so amenable to that. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I will make a motion to table the vote on 441 Post Road until May 6th. I think
At least start the discussion, whether it leads to a further tabling because of the discussion, so be it. We have until
May 22nd.
But we should probably get started on the discussion, so I appreciate that. Commissioner Harrison, is there
Thank you.
seconds? Corsillo seconds. Anything further, or can we push it to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Commissioner Harrison, I assume, that's, just want to make sure.
Aye.
Thank you. So that motion to table till May 6th passes unanimously. I just get the sense that there are a few people in the room. I wanted to take that out of order so people aren't waiting for that. Okay, going back into our line item B2, 1B, Pansy Road, 824 review of donation of land to the town. Ms. Harrigan?
I'm just gonna
No
share
worries.
my screen if that's okay.
Of course. Thank you.
If the board can remember, this was a 3-lot subdivision that came before you. Contingent upon the inland wetlands approval. The rear lot is required to be turned over to the town. And so this application is an 8-24 review by the commission to accept that to recommend acceptance of that donation.
We've seen this previously, I believe, right?
Yes, for the subdivision
Yeah.
application,
Subdivision application, and now we're moving on to effectuate the donation.
correct.
May I have a motion to recommend, favorable recommendation or negative recommendation? Mr. Purcell?
Move to recommend favorably.
Is there a second?
Second.
Give it to Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Corsillo?
The commission was previously supportive of this when it first came before us. It's a large piece of land that we'd be getting as open space, larger than the parcels we typically get as open space, and the Conservation Department has been supportive of it as well. I see no reason not to accept it.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun?
Yes, I totally agree. And I think, what is it, 8.5 acres of wetlands that will be preserved permanently. Our Conservation Director, Tim Bishop, fully endorses this. It'll be under his watch. So this is an excellent way of doing a small subdivision. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Harrigan, can we increase the volume a bit?
Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you, just a little light. I heard everything. I just wanted to ask that we increase the volume here. Any other, aptly said, and seems pretty straightforward, as we've done this we were effectuating what we decided in the past. Any other comments or
It sounds like
comments or thoughts from the commission? All those in favor of a favorable recommendation, please say aye or raise your hands. I see Commissioner Braun's hand. Commissioner
Harrison. Harrison.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. New applications for recommendation to public hearing. 345 Old Dam Road, special permit and coastal site plan application of K&J Partnership pertaining to a single-family residence with rooftop deck within 100 feet of a coastal resource in the Beach District. Sargon?
Mr. Chair, so this is a coastal site plan application with normally would not trigger a public hearing. However, within the Beach District regulations, whenever an applicant would like to request a rooftop deck, a special permit is required to be reviewed by this commission. So that's what kicks it to a public hearing.
Hearing is required. May I have a motion? Commissioner Corsillo,
To recommend the public hearing.
second. Commissioner Levy. Anything further?
Nope.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Commissioner Harrison, I see. Commissioner Braun,
Correct.
I hear her. Commissioner Braun, I
Yes,
assume that's
yes,
it.
I raised my hand. Yep.
All right, all right, all right. Now I've got you on screen. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Old business. We said we discussed 3A and 3B already. 3C, 4480 Black Rock Turnpike zoning compliance application of 4480 Black Rock LLC pertaining to a 96-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. AAA zone.
Cool.
There we go. Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Let's go back and forth.
Thank you.
Is this on? Okay.
It is.
It is on. Okay. The subject site is a vacant wooded site of approximately 4.72 acres located on the north side of Black Rock Turnpike that contains an area of wetlands in the eastern portion of the property. The site's residential AAA district would otherwise require 2 acres to construct a single-family residential dwelling in this area. There is an easement for a driveway on the eastern portion that provides access to two single-family residential sites. To the rear of the site located at 4454 and 4466 Black Rock Turnpike, as well as an easement for a water line approximately along this driveway corridor. The proposed 96-unit multifamily development per the 830G statute is comprised of two separate residential structures of 4 stories over 2 levels of subterranean parking, as well as a first-floor community room amenity that extends off the eastern building. The building elevations are highest in the central shared driveway between the 2 buildings, as the grade to the west and the east of the site otherwise screens the 2 levels of parking below the residential floors. The proposed driveway on Black Rock Turnpike, State Route 58, is proposed to be located across from the driveway for the Greenfield Hunt neighborhood, also known as Bennington Drive. In order to construct the project, the site will be excavated of approximately 42,000 cubic yards of sandy material, 2,700 of which will remain on site. The applicant has indicated that this pre-construction activity will be limited to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and has indicated that they will accept all of the conditions of section 24.7 of the land excavation and fill requirements of the zoning regulations as part of any approval. As an 830G project, 30% of the proposed 96 units or 29 units will be deed restricted affordable for a period of 40 years. This includes 4 2-bedroom units and 11 1-bedroom units at 60% area median income, AMI, and 3 2-bedroom units and 11 1-bedroom units at 80% AMI. The applicant's experts have indicated that WPCA approval has been granted for this project to connect into the town sewer system, and public water supply is available at the site. The stormwater system has been designed to accommodate the 1-year storm event, and a stormwater pollution prevention plan has been submitted to the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection due to the size of the site area that exceeds 1 acre. Sediment and erosion controls are required prior to the start of any construction-related activities and must remain in place for the duration of the construction project. The applicant's traffic consultant's report indicates that trip generation for the proposed 96-unit building can be accommodated by the Black Rock Turnpike, State Route 58, roadway and driveway sight lines exceed the minimum required for the project, provided the existing metal guardrail is removed and the property frontage is slightly regraded per town engineering department comments and subject to Connecticut DOT approval. It is recommended that the proposed driveway align with Bennington Drive. The proposed building provides a full interior sprinkler system, an on-site fire hydrant for water supply, and fire department access that meets current fire code requirements. Approval has been granted by the Inland Wetlands Agency for the prior much larger project that had a broader area of disturbance into the upland review area. The conservation director indicates that the current proposed project reduces this upland review area disturbance area, and the approval requires significant site and wetland buffer plantings that provide soil erosion protection, habitat and food value, and delineation to be installed per the requirements of that approval with an independent site monitor providing regular required reporting. The Economic Development Director is satisfied with the final affordable housing plan provided and the distribution of units among the project. Neighbor testimony expressed concerns about safety due to existing traffic conditions, including high speeds and volume on Black Rock Turnpike, as well as due to the increase in dump truck traffic during the excavation portion of the project and other recently completed projects such as the new medical building. Some residents expressed concern with water supply issues and the increased threat of fire and potential wildfires. Direct neighbors expressed concerns about potential sedimentation impacts to Hoyt's Pond during the excavation and construction periods. The commission is familiar with the standards for review of a denial of an affordable housing application, and those standards were discussed during the hearing. The burden shall be on the commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. The decision is necessary to protect a public interest in health, safety, or other matters within the commission's jurisdiction. Such interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. Court cases have indicated that the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must also contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application.
Good question. Is Attorney Fallon here on 168 Kings Drive?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so if he wasn't, then I've thought about Philbin, taking the Philbin first, but okay, never mind. Well, he's an attorney, but Commissioner Ford told me for him if he wants to participate in this. Thank you. Yeah, if you can just silence the phones, please. Okay, I think it's worth waiting for Attorney Ford. If he's told me he's less than 5 minutes away, so we're not starting a conversation without him.
Do you want to call a full minute recess? If anybody needs,
Why don't we do that quick recess
Comfort
until he
rest.
comes, if that's okay? I'll take advantage of it myself just because.
I'll just mute the.
Thank you.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman, whenever you would want to proceed.
Commissioner Ford is back. Commissioner Collins, I guess, may I have a motion on this item? Commissioner Corcel,
Move to approve with the following conditions and recommendations. With the condition that the lease agreements for the one-bedroom units with dens will specify they are for occupancy as one-bedroom units and that the dens do not meet the requirements to be considered bedrooms. With the condition that the applicant conduct a wildlife survey in May or June, with the condition that pre-construction activity be limited to Monday through Friday from 8 AM to 4 PM. With the condition that the applicant adhere to section 24.7 of the land excavation and fill requirements of the zoning regulations. The recommendation that the applicant use phosphorus-free fertilizer, with the recommendation that the applicant fund elsewhere in town the replacement of trees comparable in number and cumulative diameter to the on-site net loss in coordination with the town conservation director.
conditions are conditions of approval, recommendations are recommendations for.
Can you repeat them, Commissioner? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I got the recommendations correct.
The conditions, the lease agreements for the one-bedroom units with dens will specify they're for occupancy as one-bedroom units and that the dens did not meet the requirements to be considered bedrooms. A condition that the applicant conduct a wildlife survey in May or June. A condition that pre-construction activity will be limited to Monday through Friday from 8 AM to 4 PM. And the condition that the applicant adhere to section 24.7 of the land excavation and fill requirements of the zoning regulations. Those are the conditions. And then recommendations, that the applicant use phosphorus-free fertilizer and that the applicant fund elsewhere in town the replacement of trees comparable in number and cumulative diameter to the on-site net loss in coordination with the town conservation director.
Thank you. And those are all conditions, correct?
The last two were recommendations.
Oh, that's your, okay, got it. Thank you.
Ms. Harrigan, just anything, because I assume you're trying to do.
I was trying to encompass most of the feedback I
Anything-
heard from other commissioners and the
Okay.
comments. And staff
Anything
comments.
from staff as far as things that may have been left out, and we'll ask if it was.
No, I think we oftentimes will add the standard condition that they have to meet the requirements of their affordability plan.
Can we add that as a
We can add
condition?
that, yeah.
Okay. And just,
Just a question whether about the sight lines and DOT approval.
We can do that as well.
Guardrail.
that,
I don't know if that'd be a recommendation or.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that. I thought about making it a condition, but then it seemed like it was required anyway, but.
is it required
It's helpful
anyways?
to.
I think it's helpful to add it to the approval because it gives the Connecticut DOT guidance.
As a condition or a recommendation?
Could be a recommendation. Ultimately, they have authority over that roadway.
And when you say wildlife survey, is that kind of what I discussed with the applicant at the time as far as?
So
Go ahead.
it came up initially because of the turtles. That's where the May and June timeline came from because it was one of the experts had indicated that would be the time most likely to get some indication of their presence on the site. So that was where the timing came from, and
Yeah.
I didn't specify turtles because
No,
obviously.
you don't
there
have
could be
to,
other
but is it,
wildlife there.
I remember we discussed, and I'm sorry, we should get the full motion on, but let's, since there are a lot of conditions, talking about getting the sill fence in and then investigating the area and seeing any wildlife, taking them and putting them over the silt fence. That's, I think, remember?
I mean, just amending that.
I'm just asking
recommendation
if you
to-
think that include. But, you know,
If we can.
let's get them, yeah, let's talk about it. I'm sorry, we went too long on this. Is there a second to that? Commissioner Levy, seconds.
I'll second with the request for an amendment that a condition be subject to DOT approval, that the guardrail be removed and the area along Black Rock Turnpike properly regraded to allow for appropriate sightlines.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get on
Mhm.
first before a second. So, okay, that's the motion. Okay, so the motion is what Commissioner Corsillo had outlined, plus what Commissioner Levy just said. Commissioner Harrison?
I just had a question and, I guess I'm not, I appreciate Commissioner Corsillo's very thoughtful, conditions. I just don't understand what a wildlife survey would do May or June. That's great, but however, I think that's just not adequate. At this point in
Let
time,
me-
it should have been done beforehand. I mean, if we
Well,
find,
I didn't know
just-
if you had a question on the motion itself. I mean, let's
Okay.
let the move-ins and the second go.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was seconded.
Well,
Sorry.
that's okay. I just want to make sure that everybody
Yep.
was understanding the motion.
Sure.
So let's get that in place. Commissioner Porcello, it's your motion, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I guess just to start with that, Commissioner Harrison, I don't think that the wildlife would be grounds for denial under the requirements. And so I guess the thinking there was really mainly if they conduct a survey, then they could mitigate that somehow. And it's hard to be, if someone has a suggestion for how to be more prescriptive with a second part to that, I'm open to it, but I'm not sure how to be more prescriptive, given that we don't know what the survey is going to find yet.
All right, why don't
No,
you
that's
start?
But anyway, other than that, the evidence in the record does not demonstrate a quantifiable probability of harm to public health or safety. The testimony pointed out existing conditions, including traffic along Black Rock Turnpike, again, speculated about potential impacts, neither of which is sufficient to deny the application. On the other hand, the project will create 96 badly needed new homes, 29 of them affordable, including 15 for folks earning 60% of the area median income, which is about $56,000 a year. Does that at a density of around 20 units per acre, which is a density more typical of townhouses and garden homes, and without encroaching on neighboring homes in the same way that a lot of other applications of this type have recently, with the closest existing homes under 47 and 170 feet away, and the others ranging from 266 to 368 feet away. And so I think this is an application that certainly satisfies the requirements. Does not, the opponents, while I appreciate their engagement, did not satisfy the thresholds needed to deny the application. And I think the addition of that many new homes is going to be a big positive for the town.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I would agree that, the development of this project and adding additional affordable housing units is a real positive. I do appreciate the neighbors' concerns about traffic. There's no question that vehicles proceeding southbound on Black Rock Turnpike do often exceed the posted speed limit. But I don't think that the evidence or the concerns regarding speed and traffic on Black Rock Turnpike are sufficient to establish a quantifiable probability of a specific harm. So based upon that, I'd say under the requirements of 830G, that it is appropriate that this be approved and that the need for affordable housing outweighs any concern regarding the size and impact of this project. In terms of the condition regarding wildlife, I'm not quite sure exactly how best to deal with that, but my suggestion might be that be framed that a wildlife study would be done in May and June, and that depending on the results of that survey, that any threatened species or steps be taken to try and protect any threatened species, whether from the construction site or take other appropriate reasonable steps to lessen the impact on any wildlife in the area. If that's what you had in mind.
All right, well, we can discuss, I think that may frame it a little better, but let's move on. We can come back to that. Any other comments?
Commissioner Harrison have her hand up.
She did
No, I
previously.
didn't.
Commissioner, you want to jump
No, I
in
didn't
now?
jump.
Who else?
I'll defer to others. Thank you.
Commissioner Randolph.
I want to start saying clearly, I don't like this project. It's too large for the site. It's out of character for the area. It removes a significant stretch of forest canopy, and it's not the kind of development most of us would choose for this part of town. It's sprawl. I've heard the neighbors' concerns and I share them about traffic, the impact on Hoyt's Pond, and the changing feel of Black Rock Turnpike. And I live nearby here. I biked this road for years. It reminds me of Vermont, wooded, quiet, with views of the reservoir. It's a special place, and I understand the frustration created by this proposal. But I also must emphasize that under the state law, this commission cannot deny an application like this simply because it's unpopular or doesn't match our zoning. The fact is, we gave up that control by not complying with the state law that's been in place for almost 30 years, known as 830G. 830G's affordable housing law gives developers broad rights in towns like Fairfield that haven't met the 10% affordable housing. We're currently at just 2.6%. Affordable housing is in desperately short supply, and this project provides what's needed. Under 830G, the only legal way we can deny a project is if it creates a serious and specific threat to public health or safety. And in this case, after expert review, that threshold was not met. Here's what we know about the application. 29 of the 96 apartments, that's significant. 30% will be deed restricted as affordable for 40 years. And will provide opportunities for the people to have new neighbors, including people just starting out in life, public service workers like teachers and firefighters who currently have a hard time affording this town. The project has approval from the sewer authority and it has access to public water. Stormwater management has been reviewed by all appropriate authorities with the proper technical expertise. We're not technical people. We rely on the technical experts and they've approved this. A larger version of this project has already been received inland wetlands approval. This version is smaller. Traffic engineers confirm the proposed driveway is safe with minor adjustments that have been thoughtfully added as consideration. And all fire protection meets code with sprinklers, hydrants, and emergency access. There's simply no expert evidence in the record that would allow us to legally deny this project. And if we did, the applicant would appeal and the outcome is likely to be known. As a commissioner, I don't get to vote based upon how I wish the law worked. I have to vote based on how it does work. And while I dislike this project, I took an oath to follow the law and I will. That doesn't mean we're powerless. Right now, Fairfield has a temporary moratorium on new 830Gs, but it's not going to last forever. If we want to regain control, we need to act quickly and finalize our long overdue POCD. Tonight, I'll vote to approve this application, not because I want to, but because the law leaves me no other choice. But the real choice is what we do next in planning for the community. Let's try to plan together and get the POCD completed so we can avoid having 830Gs shoved in the wrong place as they have been my time on this commission. Thanks. And thank you, Mr. Corsillo, for your thoughtful amendments.
Thank you. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I do really appreciate Commissioner Porcillo's, I thought he was very thoughtful in his amendments. I just want to clarify a few things. We will be adopting the POCD in the fall, maybe earlier, but the POCD, no matter what, will never exempt us from 830G. That's just the reality of the law. I'm not here to argue the merits of it or for or against 830G, but 830G, it doesn't really mean, it only counts housing that receives state or federal government subsidies. It doesn't count the diversity of housing that Fairfield has created for many, many years, and we take that very seriously. So I know the applicant has stated that our numbers are not good, but that's only defined under 830G. The reality in the bigger picture is much different. So I just want to note that for the record. And under 830G, public safety and health, they are stances that we can take to deny something, but there's also something else in the law that says other concerns. So I just wanted to clarify that. A few weeks ago, I did have the opportunity to walk the site. It was very illuminating. I wish other commissioners had taken advantage of that. And as I walked that property, just reinforced to me the need to recognize the uniqueness of this parcel of land in this very unspoiled area of north of the Parkway. I do believe as commissioners, we should give special consideration to this area of town, which is very rural. And that's not provided in this application. The area is the most natural, wild, rural, and environmentally sensitive part of our town. It's just below the Hemlock Reservoir at the top of the Mill River watershed. It slopes steeply down into a ravine with a network of watercourses and ponds. There's also a little unnamed brook that flows under Blackhart Turnpike on the south side of the property, and it joins Cricker Brook just below Hoyt's Pond. That's where this land connects with 87 acres of Brace Richardson open space managed by our Conservation Commission. This almost 5-acre site forms a very hilly forested buffer between Blackhart Turnpike and the rest of this environmentally sensitive area. I saw it with my own eyes. This wholesale destruction of this site of excavating over 42,000 cubic yards and clear cutting the hill and disturbing 8,500 square feet in wetlands buffer, adding over an acre of impervious surface, I believe will severely degrade this unique environmental aspects of this town, of this part of town, which to me is unacceptable. It will also become a foothold for similar dense development north of the parkway, destroying what would be normally preserved. I believe, and with respect to the applicant, I think they failed to recognize or respect these values. They didn't conduct a wildlife survey. I appreciate, this being offered, but it's a little late in the game. They didn't do a proper search of the DEP's natural diversity database. Rather than do research to show what the wildlife is relying on in this natural setting, they simply offered to move box turtles if they saw them outside the silt fence. Box turtles are actually a species listed as a potential threat of extinction. And it's not just box turtles. Neighbors have taken dozens of photographs that are in the record, including other species that are listed on the DEP website. A proper wildlife study should have been done early on before, as we considered this during the public hearing, and it would have really shown what actually is and what needs to be done to protect them. Similar to what Commissioner Randolph said, hundreds of trees are going to be cleared out to make room for 49,000 square feet of impervious surface with a flattened hilltop rather. The seriousness of this loss of forested area will be minimized by claiming that there were beech trees and that they would probably die anyway. I think we should really expect better from applicants, no matter what kind of application it is. If you don't have a good grasp on the existing condition, which includes the environmental resources, then you can't predict what's going to happen in the future and what kind of adverse impacts would happen in the future. I believe this application should be denied with prejudice and have the applicant come back with adequate information to make us able to make a fully informed decision. That's all I have to say at this point. Thank you.
Commissioner Braun?
I have an outline I'm going to read from. I piggyback on what some of the comments Commissioner Randolph said, that this feels like Vermont. This is a unique, and I also support what Commissioner Harrison said. Conditions of approval will not fix this. I believe even on an 8-30G application, we still need complete information. Even though this is a compliance application where they file a site plan and we have 65 days, they need to include what we need. They didn't do that. They did not do a wildlife survey even after the question came up. They looked at a map on the DEP website, which showed a bunch of areas where there were listed species of concern or endangered or threatened, sort of surrounding this site. But that's only step one in the analysis. Right on that map, it says, the map is intended for use as a preliminary screening tool for conducting a natural diversity database review request. You're supposed to locate the project and any additional affected areas. If it's within a hatched area, it may be potential conflict with this listed species. For more information, you're supposed to use the DEP website to submit a request for the natural diversity database listed species review for a site assessment. That was not done. So, and that's just one angle, because the NDDB, the Natural Diversity Database, only lists what people have reported. Most likely, people didn't report it on this property because it's private property. The Grace Richardson area has a lot of species reported that's abutting this right at the bottom of Hoyt's Pond, and other areas in the area have reported it. Certainly, this is the type of topography and ecology that supports all the species that were noted. So my point is, the applicant should still give us the relevant information we need to fully inform us. Otherwise, we would be in a position to approve applications that cause harm simply because the applicant ignored that potential harm. Unfortunately, it does tend to fall on neighbors or residents or the town to have to supply this evidence if the applicant does not. That is not the way it should work. I do not believe our state legislature, when they passed 8-30G, intended for us to approve projects that cause harm to our environmental resources simply because the applicant failed to provide adequate information to us. I believe this should be rejected based on that and other factors, which I'll go into briefly. So the site is 4.72 acres. It's steeply sloped. It's basically the top of one of the many ravines in this area, which connects to the Grace Richardson wildlife area. And Hoyt's Pond, other watercourses, intermittent watercourses, there's a whole series of them. And they all connect and they form the headwaters of Mill River, as Commissioner Harrison pointed out. Mill River is a water body that needs help. We cannot approve projects that do not adequately treat or create a lot of impervious surface without doing proper testing or ensuring that the water, the systems of water remain in place as they have been, and that the tree canopy remains in place, and that non-point source pollution is not generated by the site. I do not believe there was adequate testing to assure that the drainage system will work. Just quick note on traffic. I don't know why the applicant did not go to our own town police department to get updated accident records. We had 2 people come in and said they had accidents that were not reflected on the data. They went to the state. That is true. The state is behind by about a year in collecting information from towns. We have a police department here. You can get that information. I've done it on other cases. The ITE trip generation manual clearly does not have site-specific, town-specific, topography-specific, or project-specific information. It's, again, information supplied nationwide by people who apply for projects. It does not apply to this project, and it should not be applied to this project. It is hard to believe that somewhere between 118 bedrooms, and if somebody does use the dens, that could be 148. I realize they claim that nobody will sleep in the dens, but there could be 150 people living there. There's 130 parking spaces. There are going to be more than 36 cars going in and out. There's no other way of going anywhere. There's nowhere to walk to. There's no sidewalks. It's a very dangerous area. So between, I believe, an undercount of the trip generation, also, we don't know if those dump trucks, 2,000 to 3,000 over a 6 to 9 month period, all day long, 5 days a week, they could not tell us what direction the dump trucks are going. Virtually all the fill, which is, I guess, 42,000 cubic yards or so, will be removed with just a couple thousand cubic yards retained. That's a lot of bottleneck going in below the Merritt Parkway. And if it goes the other way, we should know that. I don't know why that wasn't provided to us. We also didn't get answers on, we did hear that it was dark skies compliant, but that does not relate to the 70-foot tall building and the 6 stories of 4 stories above 2 stories of parking that will aim out towards Hoyt's Pond and the Grace Richardson wildlife area, way up in the air. Because again, this is on a hill on the side of a ravine, basically, which goes down and then goes up on the other side where the Grace Richardson is. So you have wildlife and migratory birds that are going to be confused and impacted by the lights shining out from the building. And I don't believe that is governed under dark skies, the lights shining out from the windows in the building. I think they said they don't need to use bird strike glass. I think they should anyway, even if the windows aren't that big, but I'm more concerned actually with the light. And again, the wildlife survey, the NDDB, they should have done a full wildlife survey as well as a tree survey. A tree survey would show the full ecological sort of assessment of what the forested area provides. And that was not done. They pointed out that beech trees, yes, beech trees, there is a blight, but they couldn't be absolutely sure that every tree would die or that every tree would die right now or at the same time. Trees provide ecological services while they're alive, while they're dying, and while they're deceased. So, and if they do die, other trees will grow there. So they're replacing trees with 49,000, I guess, square feet of impervious surface. So it's absolutely ridiculous that you're claiming because some beech trees are going to die over the next 4 or 5 years, it doesn't matter that we're clear cutting and basically topping off a hill. So that should have been done. The wetlands permit, I still don't think we have an answer on that. I know the wetlands permit itself, it's in the record. It states very clearly that any change in approved plans must be approved by the Inland Wetlands Agency. This involves changes required by any other agency. The permittee shall also obtain the agency's approval prior to making any additions, deletions, or modifications to any documents, including easements that involve a regulated area. So this needed the agency approval. We don't have anything in our record that says the agency approved the modification to the original 2022 wetlands permit. We do have the conservation director saying that he wants different landscaping done and remove some of the ground cover and things like that. But I do not believe we have anything from the agency saying that the wetlands permit was approved in its modified form. The severe grading is a deep concern, because even with the taking off the top of the hill, requiring over 2,000 dump trucks to cart away, it seems extremely steep. And I don't know that our engineering department is able to, or has been requested to do a deep dive into all aspects of this. I do not believe adequate testing was done on the drainage system. And if it wasn't done, then you cannot assume it will work. So just from my knowledge from when I took the stormwater course a few months ago, and the testing, here's a couple things that I picked up on. Okay. First of all, in the garage, the garage is supposed to be connected directly to the town sanitary sewer system. I did not see that on the plans. There's also supposed to be one of those oil separators in that connection. Now we have 2 levels of garages in 2 different buildings. That's 4 areas that have to be connected to the sanitary sewer system. I don't see that happening, and that's a piece of missing information. The combination of the rain garden over an infiltration system known as a Cultex system, I've read that that's not recommended. That's 2 different systems that are draining from 2 different portions of the project. It's complicated. Also, where the rain garden is, it's going to be used as a temporary sediment trap during construction. How will that be cleaned up so it can be used as a rain garden that somehow connects to an infiltrator system below it? They did not do proper infiltrator tests. They did a percolation test, which according to the stormwater manual is not adequate. You're supposed to do something called an infiltrator test. Also, the test pits for the infiltrator were not deep enough to properly test the soil's capacity to infiltrate where those galleries are proposed. So if you don't do the proper testing, you cannot assume that the system will work. That system is in a very busy part of this plan. It's right up where the driveway meets Black Rock Turnpike. That's also the staging ground, or near the staging ground, for all these dump trucks. That could lead to compacted soil, and compacted soil does not infiltrate the way non-compacted soil does. I also did not see a drawn out diagram of how the larger fire trucks would access the site up at the top. Once the rain garden and the infiltrator are in, you can't put anything above that. So I don't know how well that's going to fit in. It's a very tight area. Continuing on, Mr. Hurley wrote a memo. Now this hearing ended on April 1st. He wrote a memo in late March saying slope stabilization and grading issues are of concern, but could be engineered. Is there a ledge? It looks like another retaining wall is proposed. I'm available to talk. I think this was the day before our last day of hearing. The applicant answered, we have an extensive sediment erosion control plan which depicts straw netting and stabilized surfaces. The steep slopes will be planted with ground cover to provide long-term stabilization. But then I note that Mr. Bishop in the conservation department, he wanted them to eliminate the ground cover. So to me, that is an open question over whether the proper stabilization is being planned on. Mr. Hurley then said a site monitor would have to be done for the wetlands permit for stabilization. It seems like stabilization is an issue and a problem. Mr. Hurley pointed out that per DEP, they need actually a special permit. They need a special permit for DEP because they're actually doing a huge amount of disturbance over an acre. And so that requires another special permit, but we didn't really get a presentation on that. So I think my conclusion is they did not give us the information we need on drainage, on traffic, on wildlife, on the ecosystem of the hillside that dips down deeply into a ravine and the forested area, the loss of that. We did not get the information we need. Environment is clearly within our jurisdictional authority. In fact, we're the only ones who have the authority. There's no one else. The only thing the wetlands agency can do is have authority over the actual wetlands and the buffer surrounding them. And it is unfortunate that this project does go well into the buffer area. But I feel like we are in our rights by saying, you did not give us the information we need to complete your site plan, and we cannot approve it as it is. So in light of the comments that were made by Commissioner Harrison, this is a unique area. It's the part of our town that you never expected to have apartment buildings in. And before we engage on that journey of filling it in with high density apartment buildings and destroying this fragile environmental area, I think we need to do a whole lot more research. We have not gotten that. So I would support denying this without prejudice to provide the information that's needed so we can do this the right way. And putting turtles outside of a silt fence or even doing a survey, that's not adequate. We cannot approve it without having a whole lot more information. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll jump in. I'll be supporting the application. I don't believe that there's sufficient evidence in the record to deny it. The objections, the objections from the public and even voiced tonight, I don't believe rise to the necessary evidentiary standard that's required in courts. I think it's mere speculation, regardless of how genuine and reasonable they are. The standard is with an 830G is pretty clear as the burden's on us to show adequate evidence in the record. And I don't believe the statements of asking for additional information and beliefs that negative, disfavorable outcome is going to come to the applicant is anything but speculation. And I think the discussion about the engineering aspect of it, I think has a misunderstanding of what's the process going forward is the engineering department reviews it, it's in their jurisdiction. And I think sufficient information that we've seen in the past for other application has been provided to us with respect to engineering. As best that can be done at this point, and should there issues arise, I mean, it's not within our jurisdiction about the drainage, and sign off goes through the town engineer, which is more than adequate. And should there have been specific questions to the town engineer about sufficiency, whatever it was, that could have been addressed to him or her, whomever was reviewing this at the time. And there was no request by this commission or any commission members that I know of asking specific questions to the engineer. So again, as genuine and reasonable as the objections are, I believe they're speculative in nature and not to the evidentiary standard that the courts will hold us to. I think most, if not all, of the commission would prefer to have seen this as open space, and that's fair. This is undeveloped land, and it's a beautiful part of the area, but it is private property, and they have a right to develop the property. They had two routes. Our regulations, AAA, single family residence with all the setbacks and requirements, but there's a state law that allows them to do what they're doing. So they chose the second one, and they have a right to develop the property. I believe they've done it as reasonably as would be expected by taking a large tract of land that's undeveloped and making it into this project. The density, 20 units per acre, is not only better than we've seen in other 830G applications. It's going to be adequate parking. It's on a busy road right next to the Hi-Ho and to medical office. It's not as if it's right in a neighborhood, which we have had the unfortunate circumstances and prior applications and current ones now. So there will be some inconvenience to the neighbors, there's no doubt about it. But I don't believe it rises to the standard that we need to deny it. And anything that the burden's on us. So asking for additional information, I think based on the information that's been provided is not gonna be sufficient. And I think a lot of the questions, it was speaks about engineers could have been addressed to the engineer for tonight. They did answer where the dump trucks are going. It would depend on what what was excavated and where that would go. They weren't able to tell us, and that makes sense as to why they wouldn't. As far as the inland wetlands permit, I believe that had been addressed. As I understand, Ms. Harrigan, please jump in if I'm wrong, that the Inland Wetlands Commission had said, leave it up to staff. Staff made the determination. So, and again, if there is a problem with the permits, that's kind of outside of our jurisdiction, and they would need that anyways in order to build, regardless of what we did. They could come here without an inland wetlands permit. And that wouldn't factor into our consideration because they would need to get it at some other point before they could even make the build. So, for all those reasons, I mean, as far as 830Gs go, except for the fact that it's taking over a very beautiful piece of undeveloped land, which I've driven by several times. I didn't go in, feel the need to go in, but I saw what it was. And it would be nice to have that as open space, private property, and they have a right to develop as they are. And I think that their presentation was professional and reasonable, and it's given substantial evidence to approve it, not affecting any of the criteria that we would need to deny it. And I don't believe there's any evidence in the record that would give us ample reason to deny it. Yeah, before I go to Commissioner Braun, or
I have a couple points I forgot to make. Can I make a couple follow-up points that I forgot to
let's
make?
let Commissioner Ford jump in, and
Sure.
then we can go back to you.
This is an 8-30G application. I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I say this in almost every single application. You fight, and I always commiserate with neighbors who come in who object to these applications, that I consistently say, the fight is in Hartford, not here. Recently, I've said that in our past election, we had individuals running for statewide office who ran against these types of developments and want to go to Hartford and change 8-30G. They were resoundingly rejected by the electors here in Fairfield. So there is an argument to be made that on some level, the people here want these types of developments. I don't. I'd prefer to see a nice neighborhood here. Cul-de-sac would have been perfect. You know, you'd be lucky to live on a street on a bucolic area of Fairfield. Yeah, I see it both ways. Commissioner Noonan is right. We have an uphill battle. We've seen the results. We've been overturned numerous times in the last couple of years. I also struggle with the balancing of, listen, I grew up in Fairfield. Moved back, lived in Boston for a short period of time, moved back in 2000. Guess what I couldn't afford to do? Live in Fairfield. So guess what I did? I didn't live in Fairfield. Saved my money, waited, and rented in Fairfield, then ultimately bought in Fairfield. Lucky to do it. You know, so these applications I have a tough time with generally philosophically because they're rentals, right? So we're really creating a transient society in Fairfield. Not necessarily people here to put down roots and remain. Yes, it's an opportunity to live in a town and perhaps, you know, we always hear that the education is never going to be impacted, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But is it an opportunity for, you know, our cops, firemen, and teachers to live in town? Absolutely. It is, but there's no guarantee that they're going to stay forever. They still may not be able to afford it after living, you know, a couple of years here on Black Rock Turnpike or Tungus Hill that we just recently approved, or the other 8-30Gs that we've approved in town. And there's always comments about, you know, our numbers, where we are. We got the moratorium, but you know, that only lasts so long. Well, we could fix that. You know, the town could organize, let's get a project that's 100% affordable. Let's get 2 of them. And let's make real progress so that then we don't have to worry about these these applications being placed in our neighborhoods, which they're going to continue to do in the next couple of weeks. I think we have one in the middle of Reef Road, right in the middle of a neighborhood. I imagine they're queuing up already and sharpening their pencils to write their letter. So so I'm torn on this application. I could see approving it based on Attorney Nunes, Commissioner Nunes, not wrong. The courts are against us on most of these applications. That's just the reality. But again, we have some choices we can make every November. We can, there's a super majority in Hartford, as we all know. The statute could be amended very easily, and it is not. We knock on their doors. I think recently, Representative Leeper asked them to at least give us more time to consider the application. It never even made it, maybe even on a committee agenda in Hartford. So, the state doesn't want this statute to be amended either. So it really handcuffs us. Well, 6 or 8 houses would have been nice. I don't think, people would really object to that. And this is a sprawl, no doubt about it. It started with the medical center. That was going to be an 8-30G, you may recall, then it was converted to the medical use. And there's another one coming, another application coming in the short term, very similar. So it seems like it's starting to spread up Black Rock Turnpike, just like it's spreading each way on the post road. My vote really doesn't matter. I think it's probably 4-3 if I were to deny it. So I think that's all I'll say for now. Commissioner, thank you.
Commissioner Braun, and then Commissioner Harrison?
Okay, just about getting back to the wetlands permit, we do have in our regulations, number 2.16, that we cannot even accept an application until the wetlands agency acts. So my point was, they didn't act. They had a modification of a former application, and we don't have anything from the agency indicating that they acted on the modification. Okay, that's that point. I wanted to just point out another thing about 8-30G, okay? I disagree with the comment made by another commissioner that we did not comply with 8-30G. That is absolutely wrong. We comply with 8-30G. There's no requirement that we do anything except follow the law when we vote. There's no requirement that we add affordable housing to add up to the 10% exempt amount, or that we even get a moratorium. The moratorium is given to towns to get out from under the horrible burden of shifting the burden of proof from the applicant to the commission when things go up on appeal. So they gave us a moratorium for 4 years if we can get a certain percent of affordable using a point system, which itself is very complicated. So that's not a matter of whether we comply or not. We got enough points. We got a 4-year moratorium. We've been told by our economics development director, Mr. Barnhart, we will never get to 10%. All 10% is an exempt amount. If we have 10%, we'll be exempt from 8-30G altogether. Like, of course, you have to redo that calculation every year. And 10% means 10% of your housing stock is affordable, as defined by 8-30G. Okay, as defined, meaning it does not include naturally occurring affordable housing that might be in duplexes or other types of affordable units around town. It has to be classified according to 8-30G. So we'll probably never get to 10% because the same 83% of towns that didn't have 10% when the law was passed still don't have 10% now, because it's an almost mathematical impossibility. The only way we'll get another moratorium anyway is what Commissioner Ford said, which is the town has to get on top of this and find some places to 100% affordable. You'll get more points. That'll get us another moratorium. And then as far as firefighters, I haven't done the math, but I don't think a firefighter would qualify for the affordable units. And I don't know if a firefighter would want to pay $3,000 or $4,000 rent to live in the non-affordable unit. So I'm not sure who's going to live here. I know there's a demand right now. At some point there might not be, but I don't know that it's really for workforce housing to either pay $3,000 or $4,000 rent and not add to your family wealth, and or try to not make enough money so you can live in one of the affordable units. So, thank you.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, and I would say I just want to say to the neighbors tonight, if you don't like 8-30G, take it to Hartford. This is a law that we must adhere to. And every 2 years, you have an opportunity to change the way change our representation in Hartford, and people who want to make, meaningful changes to 830G and create laws that actually create affordable housing. That's, you don't criticize us. We are just essentially jurors on this. I will be voting opposition to this because, commissioners, zoning commissioners, whether it's 830G or not, should have every opportunity to be fully informed before they have to rule. And in this case, we were not. And I believe that I think that I would like to see this denied without prejudice and for the applicant to come back to make us fully informed. Again, I just want to note that this town does and has and currently is creating zone changes to create a diversity of housing. So before people criticize us or applicants criticize us, take note of the work Fairfield has been doing. I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, or can we put this to a vote?
You need to read this.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Levy had made a suggestion, which I can't remember the exact wording, but sounded good at the time.
Would you like me to try and restate
Yes,
it? If you would?
please.
My suggestion was that the wildlife study be done between May 1st and June 30th, that if any species are determined to be within the construction area, that diligent efforts be made to protect those species during the period of construction.
Mitigation
And to
plan
mitigate
be
the-
submitted to the Conservation Department.
Yeah, with a mitigation plan to be submitted to the Conservation Department.
Hold on 1 second.
We'll
Ms.
do
Harrigan,
we'll do a second.
Ms.
that work?
Harrigan,
I got it.
did you get it?
Yep.
All right, the one thing I would suggest is not the construction site, but the premises.
The premises.
Premises, yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make sure Ms. Harrigan got it first before I made a change, a suggested change. About this, Commissioner Randolph?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second this. This was an issue that I raised and it was discussed with the wildlife consultant to conduct the survey in a time outside they had normally served it. So this was an issue that I raised and it does satisfy my requirements. So thank you for adding that.
You're the initial movement, is that friendly amendment okay with you?
Yep.
Excuse me. You're a second, so I assume.
second,
Yeah,
so-
exactly. Okay, so friendly amendment is, motion is amended duly in that respect. Unless anybody has an issue with how that worked out. Oh, okay. All right. Anything further? Can we put this to a vote? Does anybody want the motion restated, or does everybody kind of have a sense of what the motion, does everybody understand the motion at this point? I'm gonna assume everybody understands that we went over pretty, I think, thoroughly in the beginning with the simple amendment here. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, passes 4-3. Opposition is Ron, Harrison, and Ward. Thank you for the discussion. Moving on to our next item in compliance is 750 Post Road compliance application of Chick-fil-A for 25 space parking lot expansion in the design commercial district. Very good.
If it's okay if I can speak from here, I'll try to speak loudly. The existing Chick-fil-A restaurant located at 750 Post Road is requesting a 25 space parking lot expansion to the west of its current parking lot and building. This area was previously the site of the barber shop that was demolished. This results in a total increase of 21 spaces and would result in 107 overall spaces for this use. Since opening, Chick-fil-A has found that a significant portion of their business includes third-party pickup services such as Grubhub, DoorDash, or Uber Eats, or customers who order via the app and then pick up. As they staff 18 to 40 team members during the shifts, this additional parking area will primarily provide spaces for employees who are now walking from off-site lease spaces. The applicant is providing additional stormwater management for this additional impervious area, landscaping, additional sidewalk along the street frontage, as well as improved pedestrian access from the sidewalk. I did provide you with a memo from this afternoon. Bill Hurley was on vacation last week, but additional test pits were conducted in conjunction with the stormwater design, which were compliant with the requirements. And so that's what the memo states. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Randolph,
I move to deny.
for a second?
Second.
Oh, Ron.
Oh, did she, yeah, if you can take that off so I can see, okay.
Sorry.
All right, I'll give it to Commissioner Corsillo. Commissioner Randolph.
I'm opposed to the request to expand the parking lot at 7050 Post Road to add 25 spaces. While the applicant includes stormwater improvements, landscaping, and sidewalk, the proposed conflicts with the town's planning goals and should not be approved. Although the 2024 plan of POCD hasn't been formally adopted, it reflects 7 years of public input, professional analysis, policy discussions, builds on the 2016 POCD and has been cited by many applicants. The commission has approved text amendments and the site plans based upon 2024 recommendations, treating the document as a reliable expression of the town's long-term direction. The 2024 POCD calls for reducing excess parking in impervious surface, particularly in walkable, transit accessible corridors like 750 Post Road. It warns that oversized parking lots increase development costs, undermines walkability, and contributes to stormwater runoff and heat island effects. The plan encourages efficient land use, compact development, and pedestrian-oriented design. Approving this expansion would run counter to that vision. Importantly, converting this site to surface parking eliminates the opportunity for more valuable use, such as mixed-use retail and residential building within walking distance of services, transportation, and amenities. Based upon the business success, it's reasonable to assume the parking lot would remain for 15 years or more. That's a long-term commitment of a highly visible infill site to low productivity land use in an area where the town is trying to promote reinvestment. This decision also has fiscal implications. A parking lot will generate less tax revenue than a mixed-use building. Approving the parking expansion will reduce the town's long-term tax base, contradicting the 2024 POCD goals to grow the grand list through infill and redevelopment. The applicant argues that the parking is needed to support app-based takeouts and employee demand, but these needs can be addressed through operational changes such as remote parking incentives, shared parking agreements for delivery management, without permanently devoting land to asphalt. This expansion sets the wrong precedent and undercuts effort to build a more walkable, resilient, fiscally responsible Post Road corridor. For this reason, I move to reject the recommendation.
Move to deny that.
Move to deny.
Yeah. Commissioner Corsillo.
I seconded this for discussion purposes, and I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Randolph's sentiment. I think much of this town is significantly overparked. I think this does run counter to what we what I believe we're trying to do along Post Road and other corridors in town. I think the over parking is a significant issue for multiple reasons, from pedestrian safety to creating a car dependency to sort of just limiting the economic vitality of our downtown. And I think much of that is because of excessive parking minimums, which is different than what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, I think this is a compliance application. And as much as I would love to deny this application because I don't think it's a good use of this space, I don't think we have that much discretion on a compliance application like this. I think I hope we don't see more of this. I don't think we don't typically see applicants looking to add more parking than they have to, because parking is expensive, and spending that money on parking typically takes away from other more productive uses, uses that are more productive both for the applicant and for the town. So I don't think this is something that we're going to see a lot of, and I think we should continue as a commission to work on addressing the excess parking minimums elsewhere along this corridor. But again, I think as a compliance application, I think we're more limited. I think this is a more administrative review than it is a planning review, and so I think we unfortunately have to accept this.
Commissioner Braun?
I don't see a landscaping plan, and I think they're completely eliminating every tree on site. I know there's a few mature trees on the barber shop property. It looks as though they're eliminating every single living thing on the site and not replacing them. So I don't see a landscaping plan. Also, I think this will add to the traffic because of adding so many parking spaces. That was a huge issue we had back in the day when I think we denied it 4 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, based on having too much traffic approaching that intersection where South Benson, North Benson is, and the other businesses there. There have also been other businesses added, at least the pizza, I think the gas station pizza place is finally being built across the road. So I think it's going to create a traffic problem. I also think there's no landscaping plan, and I agree with what Commissioner Randolph said, so I will not be supporting this.
Thank you. Mr. Levy?
And perhaps Ms. Harrigan can help me out a little here. Is this, for the proposed parking lot, is that part of the existing Chick-fil-A parcel, or is this a separate designated parcel? If you know.
I believe that they have not yet combined them together, but they would need to if they were to be granted a permit for the expansion.
Because if it's an existing separate parcel with off-street parking is permitted within this, it's fully compliant with the regulations for the zone. I'm just questioning whether or not what our authority is with respect to a proposal which meets our zoning regulations as they currently exist, where this is a permitted use within this zone here.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We're in a compliance application. We're sitting in our administrative capacity, very limited discretion. Really, it's just looking at the application and the zoning regulations to see if the application applies with the zoning regulations, and that's our determination. Correct?
That's correct.
That's my understanding as well. Commissioner Harrison?
Yes, I do believe that this does meet our regulations right now. I don't think it's fair to cite a unadopted POCD, Plan of Conservation Development, when there has not been full consensus yet, or a vote. So, I mean, you can only have one president, you can only have one POCD. We only have one POCD. And I believe this adheres to our current regulations, so I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to express that I fully agree with Commissioner Randolph and his feeling about, the over parking, which exists throughout town. I mean, every time I drive by what used to be the Bob's, shopping center, I just look at that sprawl of parking and, I feel the same way about this, but it's not even a question of POCD, whether old or new. It's simply a question of what are our zoning regulations, and it's the requirements of our zoning regulations. And administratively, I do not see a basis for not approving this. Contrary to my personal feelings, my obligation is such that I will have to approve.
Maybe a bit fortuitous that this item is after an 830G and after most of our statements that, we have no choice but kind of follow the law in the 830G respect. And unfortunately, I kind of feel the same way about this item. We're sitting in our administrative capacity. We have to apply the regulations, not even the POCD. We're not looking at the POCD like we would for a special exception for guidance, at least to use. We're looking at our regulations only, and I don't see, in the thoughtful presentation, I don't see how this violates our existing regulations. So I feel compelled to kind of approve it. for that reason. And I, you know, in a lot of ways, I think there are some pros to this as well. If, getting, people, parking closer to their, place of work, at least they have that kind of pro. I mean, as far as traffic and landscaping, that's not required under this at all. And traffic really deals with the, size of the, restaurant, Chick-fil-A, not with parking spaces. So, yeah, as I said, I feel compelled to approve this.
Can I ask a quick
Commissioner
question?
Randolph, Braun.
So I appreciate the clarification on this topic and it's, I stated earlier, my commitment is to uphold the law. Appreciate the opportunity to inadvertently have a planning conversation through the process. Is there an opportunity, because there are a lot of mature trees there, is there an opportunity to make that, talk to the applicant about
And
replacement?
I need to apologize. I'm not sure why the landscaping plan is not part of that. They did provide a landscaping plan. And I actually referenced it, but I don't see it in the online items. But if I could just clarify, they are providing three additional trees and three additional street trees. My apologies.
Are they replacing trees that they are cutting down plus 3 trees, or it's the landscaping plan is just whatever they're gonna do, and then there's 3 trees?
There's three on-site trees and then three street trees. They are protecting one street tree that is in a portion of the construction area. And then one, they're not sure that they're gonna be able to save, but they're gonna replace it if they can.
So
So it's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trees.
That are being removed or replaced?
say again, Commissioner Braun?
How many trees are being removed and how many are being added, I guess, is a question.
5 are being removed, is that what I?
I would have to check the pre-existing survey.
But mature trees.
5 mature trees according to Commissioner Randolph,
Roughly,
and then 8 are gonna be on there, so. That gain of 3.
well, but five,
Well, of course, not the,
five
no, I get you, yeah.
large trees.
It's- Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Second.
Because it's parking.
Commissioner Braun, did you have anything further?
Are you saying there's a net gain of 3 trees?
Well, I mean, total trees, but not as far as what size, diameter.
Those trees are pretty mature, they're nice.
Anything further?
No.
Go forward. Very good.
So I withdraw, I can withdraw my denial based upon the information that.
Well, it's your motion. If you feel the need to withdraw, it, you can do so and, let
I don't
somebody.
wanna, we need to uphold the law and based upon the feedback that Commissioner Noonan and Commissioner Levy has provided, it sounds like this is a compliance, but it was helpful to have a planning conversation.
Yeah.
And I think we're all in agreement that there's gaps that need to be addressed in the zoning ordinance to avoid this going forward.
You have to withdraw your motion.
I'll have to withdraw I'll
Yeah.
withdraw my motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Corso.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Yes.
And with that and with the discussions, can I have a motion to approve? Commissioner Corso, move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Levy seconds. Anything further, or can we put this to a vote? Good. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. What do we have here? Commissioner Braun, Commissioner Harrison. You, Jeff? No, that's okay. That's fine. So 6,
I just can't, good.
that's fine.
I'll
there's-
abstain.
Fair enough. I understand. So 6, motions to approve, Commissioner Randolph abstains.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have to step off the meeting. I apologize. I'll pay attention to the videos afterwards. Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you. We're going to our public hearing anyways. Start with 1427, 1444, sorry. Kings Highway 43, excuse me. Special permit application of Philbin pertaining to construction of an 18-unit residential building in the design commercial district, commercial drive district. Where we were last time was, we had ended verbal public comments, both in person and virtual, to allow for a member of the public to submit an email on the last Friday, assume it was last Friday, yes. And we left the hearing open for rebuttal for Attorney Fallon. Attorney Fallon, I see you here, so you're here for rebuttal on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief. Members of the commission, good evening. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm representing the applicant. First of all, let me say I respect the commission's commitment to maximizing of public comment and participation in these hearings. I think that's.
Attorney Fallon, can you just speak up a little bit? For whatever reason, the audio is soft here, for whatever reason.
Sure. Hang on a second. I'll make sure I'm up all the way. Okay, is that better?
It is a little better, yes.
Okay. I could put in my earplugs and see if that works. Hang on just one second.
I think it does. Is that better, Mr. Chairman? That's a little better as well. I think the issue is on our end for whatever reason. So if you can just keep your voice up a little bit, notwithstanding you're gonna be yelling by yourself, but.
That's never been one of the criticisms of me. So first of all, let me say that I do respect the commission's commitment to maximizing public participation. And I respect Ms. Radshaw's right and opportunity to address thoughts with regard to the application that we otherwise concluded the hearing on. In looking at the email that was sent, I commend and I thank her for a lot of her comments. She indicates that the current proposal is, and I quote, a big improvement over some previous proposals, and I would agree with that. We all looked at the architectural design. She indicates that it's more architecturally pleasing than the adjacent buildings. I won't comment on the adjacent buildings, but I do think it's architecturally pleasing. And she also recognizes the longtime Philbin residents of this community having a right to, quote, reasonable return on their land and investment. So we commend and we thank her for those comments. With regard to her comments about the future POCD making provisions to enhance public green space, I leave that to the future consideration of the commission. I know the commission is working hard on that. But I would point out that in the context of this application, which is compliant with all of the regulations, it's not feasible or fair in the context of this application and where it stands now in the process to suggest that this beneficial application, which is going to increase diversification of housing in our community, be denied so that the property may be acquired for some public pocket park. That's a commendable goal from a planning standpoint, but we hope you would agree this application stands on its merits that we brought to you. So I commend Ms. Radshaw for her comments about long-term looking at enhancement to public green space. But I think this application is compliant with your regulations and should be approved on that basis. One thing I want to say before I conclude is to recognize Commissioner Randolph's thoughtful comments regarding flexible approaches to parking requirements in the context of multifamily residential development and development generally in the town. I think that is a commendable goal. And I look forward to the possibility, as long as I'm still going to be around, in potentially helping to address such a flexible approach in our regulations in a future application. However, again, taking into consideration where we stand in the process regarding this proposal and the limited size of the parcel and other constraints that we have faced, it's not feasible for this application to become the vehicle for such considerations. And I would point out that we did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and we did get a substantial parking waiver that reduced the required parking to 24 spaces based upon the fact that we would be complying with the adjacent TOD parking standards for single family development in the TOD, which otherwise we would be a part of, but for our current 13,000 square feet. So I think that it's that I hope, I just didn't want to be remiss or dismissive to the comments with regard to long-term looking at flexibility in parking, but we'd very much like to have this application approved on its merits and based upon your approval, hopefully, on the approval of the zoning board of appeals, which was unanimous. So as I said at the close, this is a utilization of property for residential purposes that's in harmony with the intent of the Commerce Drive Area Design District. We think it will enhance the character of the neighborhood and be in conformance with the character of the neighborhood. It's architecturally, I think, very attractive, and it's going to provide additional housing inventory, both market and affordable, benefiting the interests of a large segment of our community, including seniors, young people, workforce individuals, and people who desire to have an opportunity to live or remain in Fairfield. So I hope I've addressed what I need to on the rebuttal. I appreciate the commission's courtesy, and if you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. Final questions for Attorney Fallon? This item. Commissioner Randolph?
Ms. Attorney Fallon, thank you very much for your concise and thoughtful response. In your response to my question regarding submitting a parking plan, and I understand your response. In the TOD study, the ground floor of this building was designated for retail. I know that we don't have the POCD done, but the TOD study does carry planning guidance. Is that a possibility to put retail on the ground floor as directed in the adopted TOD study?
You know, originally, Commissioner, we had among one of the previous iterations of this potential use for property such a mixed use proposal. It called for retail utilization on the first floor as well as residential above. My clients made very significant efforts to bring that project to fruition, but based upon locations and market conditions, again, the size of the parcel, the limited size of the square footage of the building, there was no interest in retail on that location, which led us to look at the current application whereby we would be able to devote the entire site to much needed and much in demand residential utilization. And we did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek a waiver of the provisions of the regs that would allow us to have fully residential occupancy, and they did grant that unanimously. So I think the best answer to the question I can give you is we did look at mixed use, and I think the constraints that made mixed use not an attractive option were multiple. One was the location of the parcel itself in a primarily residential area. The other is the small size of the parcel and the fact that we really couldn't accommodate a retail first floor area that seemed to be of interest to people in the marketplace. So we did look at the mixed use. You did approve a mixed use project here, I want to say maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. We couldn't find it or make it feasible, and we hope you'll find that this is an attractive option, consistent with the general character of the residential multifamily, including directly across the street.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, and Attorney Fallon, thank you again for being here and for honoring our request for the resident to speak. Appreciate that.
Sure.
And again, I just do want to commend Mr. Rose and the team for a beautifully designed building. I think it's going to fit in nicely here. And thank you for reiterating, as you did last week, on why you couldn't do retail here. It would have been nice, but understand that probably wouldn't pencil out for the applicant. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Fallon, I think we're good then, unless there's anything further.
No, sir. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, thank you. So I'll close the hearing on this item. Item 2, we've already tabled to May 6th, so we don't need to address that again, Ms. Harrigan. That's been addressed. So I'll call our last public hearing item, 168 Kings Drive, zoning compliance application of John J. Moronsky, trustee for Christopher Coco and Andres Tokarski, pertaining to a new 10-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the Resident A Zone. Attorney Fallon was here for I'm sorry, I thought I'm kind of glad with the hearing that he's not. I thought he was here for 168. I missed
That's
it.
attorney- well-
If I may.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Adam Blank
Oh,
from
you're
the
right.
applicant, but Attorney Fallon is lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, no, okay, I'm sorry. Fair enough. No, this will make it easier, as you heard.
Yeah, the volume's a little better this way.
Thank you.
Sure. So again, Adam Blank of Wapsie Rosen, attorney for John Moransky, trustee for Chris Coco and Andres Pikarsky, the applicant. Emma, if you're able to share.
Yes.
So we've pulled up the site, and if you can maybe take your cursor over that, you've got highlighted in yellow, the site here, it's 168 Kings Drive in Southport. It's just under 33,000 square foot lot. As you know, it's an 8-30G application. The lot's actually just about 3 times the size of the minimum lot size in the underlying zone. And you can see sort of nestled between 95, the Post Road, the Metro North tracks. And it's currently improved with a sort of dated single family residence, which is no longer the most productive use of that property. The neighborhood, just so we have some context here, we've got about a handful of single family homes that surround the property. And to the, yes, if you're looking at the screen to our left, starting on the edge, you've got the Ukrainian Society property. Then you've got that 3-story Pequot Plaza. It's about a 30,000 square foot office building. The residential pieces, and then right at the end of Kings Drive there at that intersection, you got the existing condo, that large condominium project that's there, and then the new project that's under construction right there on Bronson. So it gives you some context of the neighborhood. As you know, I think heard quite a number of times, there's a need in Fairfield for affordable housing. We think that the application in front of you, it's a solely 3-bedroom units, sort of spacious, we think pretty high end, 3-bedroom townhouse style units. We can show you a couple of color renderings. So these are renderings of the proposed development. It's a 10-unit proposed project. All 10 units would be 3 bedrooms. 3 of the units, so that's 30%, would be affordable pursuant to 8-30G. I'll give you maybe 5 minutes or so of further presentation before turning it over to the team, which is Avon Bauer from Casitas Engineering, who's our engineer. I believe Joe Allen is with us, who's designed the project. Matt Pop, the landscape architect, is back here. Steve Mitchell, the traffic engineer in yellow. And Joe Versteeg did a code review for us for building and fire, and he's on Zoom. You'll hear from him towards the end of our presentation. So we received WPCA approval for the development of up to 80 units at the site. Since obtaining the WPCA approval, the project was sort of scaled back a number of times before it was actually submitted down to the 10-unit project that's in front of you today. We had a code review meeting back in February 25th. There were a couple of what I would call substantive comments from engineering and fire. We revised the plans that we believe satisfy those comments. There are some ongoing discussions. One of the engineering comments with our engineer, but we've satisfied all of the fire concerns, although we haven't been able to obtain a final word back from the fire marshal's office on that. But Mr. Versteeg will tell you that it's fully compliant, and we do believe we've addressed the fire concerns. You have a letter report from Joe, Mr. Versteeg, in the file. I will point out preliminarily as well that Attorney Joel Green represents some of the neighbors in opposition to the project. We have had a number of discussions with Attorney Green and a meeting with the neighbors just at the end of last week, which were productive. We have agreed to I'll say beef up the landscaping for a couple of the neighbors to the east of us. The landscaping plan, as you'll hear, is already quite substantial, but we've agreed to provide some taller arborvitae and some additional evergreens where there were some deciduous or smaller trees originally proposed to help screen for neighbors. They've also had some concerns related to the architecture might not be as New Englandy as they would like, and we've agreed not to do a sort of a remodel of the entire units, but to try to make some modifications to the architecture to give it a little more of a New England charm to it. And we've agreed to work with Joel and his clients between now and hopefully the another week to have some modified architecturals for you, which leads me to my next statement or question or point, which is that because we have agreed, we just were able to meet with them, agreed that we would ask at the end of tonight, subject to anything else that might come up, but that the public hearing be left open solely for submission of those new documents and comment that might come from Attorney Green or neighbors related to those plans. But otherwise, we hope to be done this evening.
Let's see where we are at the
Sure.
end of your initial presentation. Yeah, then we can maybe talk with Attorney Green to see where we are and where to go.
Okay, so as I said, the project, it calls for 10 units spread through 3 buildings. Each of the units will be about 2,000 square foot units. Each will have a garage with 2 parking spaces and a basement at that sort of ground level. And then there'll be 2 stories of living space above with an unfinished attic with the downstairs as the uppermost level or half story. These units will be very, very similar in layout and finish to the recently completed project at Oldfield Commons. That's the same development team. And we'll just really quickly, just to give you a sense of what we expect, the end product here will be almost identical to what was done there in terms of fit, finish, and layout. Just, it's kind of what we're talking about. Again, there's with two garage spaces a unit for 10 units. That's 20 garage spaces in the development. There's 6 additional surface spaces. So you've got 26 spaces for 10 units. That's over 2.5 spaces per unit. And if you're doing the math, that exceeds what your requirements would be if this were not an 8-30G project in terms of parking. The units are separated with fireproofed and soundproof party walls and applicable with code. They'll be constructed to meet or exceed Connecticut Energy Code. The building envelope components such as walls, floors, windows, ceilings will have high R values. Spray foam insulation will be used to minimize air infiltration. Each unit will have its own individual highly efficient HVAC system with programmable thermostats. We're not committing to it, but at this point, the expectation is that these will be all electric units. No gas or oil service is expected at this time. It might change, but that is the plan. You'll hear from our traffic engineer that the redevelopment of the sites will have a nominal increase on traffic, acceptable levels of service, site distances far exceeding that under the ISD criteria with no impact on safe or efficient movement of traffic in the area. I think he'll also confirm that there's been reported, I think, about 1 accident over the last 20 years on Kings Drive. So there's no health or safety concern with respect to the site driveway or increases in traffic. You have a comprehensive drainage plan as part of the application with a new retention system for the stormwater. It's a state-of-the-art system, satisfies the town's requirements of 0 increase in runoff for 24-hour type 3 rainfall, 2 through 100-year storm event. We're not located in any coastal zone. There's no wetlands or water courses on site. And again, the engineer will demonstrate no health or safety concerns posed by the development. You have a complete landscaping plan. There's extensive planting list, 100 trees, 165 shrubs, 65 perennials and grasses. Proposed Matt Pop will overview that for you shortly. We've also submitted a lighting plan showing that there's going to be no health or safety concerns posed by the lighting at the site. And as I've told you twice already, 10 units at this are proposed for this site. It's a 31,000 square foot lot. If you did the math on that, you've got a density of about 1 unit per 3,000 square feet. So in terms of scale of development, this is well below other 8-30G developments that have ultimately obtained approvals in Fairfield, whether it's come directly through you or through a court requiring that you approve it. This is the A zone. In the A zone, 131 Beach Road, 40 units on 28,000 square foot lot, a little smaller site than ours and 4 times the density. 92 140 Bronson Road. That one's a 95 unit development on a 2.7 acre site. So it works out to about 3 times the density that we're proposing here. Outside the A zone, but in resident zones generally, 528 Black Rock Turnpike, 23 units on 12,000 square feet. So that's more than double the density we've proposed. It's like 6 times the density that we've proposed here. 980 High Street, Residence B, 40 units on 108,000 square feet. That's about 25% higher density. 222 Stilson Road, 22 units on almost an identical lot size, more than double what we've got here. And then you just had 480 Black Rock, which you just discussed. And obviously densities, it's not a criteria under 8-30G, but we thought that's useful to give you some context about what we're talking here in comparison to other projects that you've seen in the past. And remember, we had the sewer approval for 80 units at the site. With that introduction, and I am going to talk a bit more at the end, but with that introduction, I'd like to let the rest of the team give their presentations. Avon, do you mind coming up first?
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. David Bauer, I'm a professional engineer, CDS Engineering out of here in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I would just like to go through a little bit of the background about this property. It's a single family lot, as Attorney Blanks mentioned. Emma, would you mind going to the next sheet? And on the lot right now, there's a small single family residence, and it's basically topography wise, it all slopes into a low point that sits along the property line at the northeast, right through about here. So the property slopes from a kind of a ledge area on the left here and a small ledge outcropping here with a low point in the middle where all the water under existing conditions drains and swales through to the rear property. We're proposing three new residential buildings, each with these 2 on the left with 3 units each, and this one with 4 units. We have parking that's pretty adequate here. We have 2 garage spaces per unit, and then there's 3 outdoor spaces here and 3 outdoor spaces here to the southwest. Those southwestern spaces will be EV ready per the building code, and there's a mailbox sitting right over here along with a small pathway that leads to a sidewalk that runs along the entire frontage, which is pretty typical for a lot of these developments that we've done. It's been a request of the town under most of these circumstances. We're proposing a 24-foot wide driveway that comes in from the southeast corner, comes in between the 2 buildings so that they each utilize the back out space of each other. And at no point is it less than 24 feet per the fire marshal's feedback to ensure that he can safely get his fire trucks in and out of the property. In between the 2 buildings, there's 20 feet of space, which would allow a fire truck to be able to get in and out and swing the turn. Even the largest ladder truck that the fire marshal has indicated he has on his staff. At the exit to the property, there's a stop bar and stop sign as well right here. I know it's a little hard to see on that scale, but it's just to, make sure people stop before they enter the roadway. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? So this is our drainage plan. As you can see, we've got 2 pretty hefty drainage systems. This one right here and another one right up over here. And what those 2 systems are doing is they detain the entire stormwater runoff or attenuate the stormwater runoff for the 2 through 100-year storm events. And at any given storm, even the 100-year storm, we are reducing the volume that overflows to this neighboring property here, where as we maintain those natural flow paths, we're reducing that volume by more than 50% under all of our storm events. And we're reducing the rate in that for that neighbor as well by 37%. So we are really heavily influencing the, the impervious surface area on here. We're making sure we attenuate as much as we possibly can on the property through these two large detention systems.
Could you just clarify? So.
Yeah.
Before the current conditions to proposed conditions, will there be more or less drainage now running off to neighboring properties?
There will be in volume, there will be at least a 50% reduction in volume going to the properties, and that's under the most severe storm events. Each of these systems was also designed to make sure we detain the water quality volume and groundwater recharge volume. And as I mentioned, one of the big stresses of our concern is that we don't want to alter any flow paths and impact any neighbors or any neighboring properties that water was not being directed to. So those flow paths have been completely maintained as a part of this design. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is our utility layout plan. Very long and short of it is we're proposing a transformer up along the front here that will service each of the buildings through meters on the sides. There's a new sewer line that's going to connect in, and as Attorney Blank mentioned, we do have WPCA approval for 80 two-bedroom units, which this is a maximum of 10 3-bedroom units, which the flows are significantly less, indicating that we do have approval, and we'll update all those calculations when we do file for building permits for the WPCA requirements. The property is serviced by public water, and there is no gas service that we are proposing at this time. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? And this is our sediment and erosion control slide. So as with all these developments that we do, one of the major concerns we want to avoid is any adverse impact from siltation to neighboring properties. So along the entire down gradient portion, that's this section here, along each side of the driveway, and then even along parts of the upper portion where the ledge is, we are proposing a silt fence that's going to run throughout that entire area. A mud track, or excuse me, a protected stockpile area up here and another one down here, as well as a very large mud tracking pad to avoid any siltation to the roadway itself. There's also been a pretty significant planting plan provided by Environmental Land Solutions, which you'll see shortly. That's also going to help with soil stability and long-term, kind of beautification of the property. Could you go to the next slide, please? And then per discussion with the fire marshal, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but this is the turning template that we're able to see to show that the 47-foot ladder truck is able to get in and out of the property without needing to make, any kind of crazy turns or back out. They are able to completely turn around and exit the property, going in and out facing the correct direction. The fire marshal also requested that we propose there's a small fire hydrant right here at the entrance. Because there are very few fire hydrants along this street, and I know that was a concern of his, that he wanted to make sure that we had one proposed near our driveway entrance. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I do thank you for your time tonight.
Ms. Harrigan, if we can maybe tomorrow reach out to the fire marshal and engineer just to get their input directly. Just because that's something we might as well start to do as well. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, thank you very much for your thorough presentation. So just to clarify, who's reviewed the stormwater plan thus far?
Anthony Santiago of the engineering department has. I had a discussion with him today. I think there was really only one comment that he had that I believe we will be able to resolve.
And so he'll be providing you a comment letter?
I don't know that he'll be doing a letter directly. He did send us an email just stating what his concern was. And I will have further discussions with him to resolve and come to a consensus.
And based upon that conversation, were there any issues that were new, unresolvable regarding stormwater?
No, I don't believe so. I think everything that he's asking for can be resolved. It was more a method of the final analysis that he was looking at, but the drainage analysis itself and the drainage systems he was satisfied with.
And thank you. And so for wetlands, did you have someone walk the site just to see to examine if there were any swales or wetlands?
I don't know that anybody walked the site, but I do believe Tim Bishop did put in his letter that there were no wetlands identified on the site.
So, you do have a letter from Mr. Bishop then?
I think it was during the code review comments that he did mention inside his code review that he did not identify any wetlands on the property.
And then for the fire truck turning, I guess we will be getting a letter from the fire department.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the fire marshal has finalized his review. I know we have had a couple discussions with him. And as Attorney Blake mentioned, there is Joe Versteeg, who is a building official and fire marshal.
Sure, I was just
Fire marshal.
making sure the town, you were working with the town on that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We'll work with the town on that.
And just one other, this is it's sort of an architectural question, but the garage width, should I hold that question? I know we were talking about the site plan and turning radius. Should I hold the question on the garage width?
I might be able to answer it.
Is, one of the renderings showed one car in front of the garage. And, I know a lot of garages are tight, which force people to, that one.
Yeah.
Force people to then use half the garage as storage and then park in the vicinity. I'm just asking, not asking for the width right now, but could you clarify at some point the garage width to make sure that it accommodates two cars comfortably, to prevent any, basically excess parking on the street, because people are not able to fit two cars in there.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the garage width is. I think it is on the architectural plans.
Joe is here, so he
Joe
can-
is, okay, yeah, and he'll discuss that a little bit more as well.
Let's hear from you for a second. So just to give you a real response on the code review minutes, state concert, this is from Tim Bishop, conservation has no comments at this time as this parcel contains no mapped inland wetlands, watercourses, regulated area, UAR, or conservation easements.
Thank you.
And we have had numerous follow-ups with the fire marshal's office. We just haven't actually been able to get a response from them confirming compliance. It's not that we haven't reached out. It's not that they've expressed concerns. It's just, we haven't gotten the response.
We'll add to it just because like I said, I think that's always something we like to do during the application is get confirmation from our department. So we'll do that as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think I got what you were saying before, but just want to make clear. So the drainage, the 50% reduction is not a 50% reduction from if there was no treatment. It's a 50% reduction from existing no build condition.
From existing conditions, yeah, and we did use the clean slate approach, meaning that we didn't take credit for the building, driveway, or any impervious surfaces on the site. So if this was a completely vacant lot, we are further reducing from that condition by 50% or more the volume of water that leaves the property in that watershed, that is.
Vacant lot that's completely impervious or pervious.
Pervious, as if it was a grassed, completely open meadow, basically. It's called a fresh meadow.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Analysis.
Any further? Well said. Thank you.
Very much.
I think Joe Allen is on remote, if we can track him down.
Mr. Allen, are you there?
And if you're able to zoom in a little bit more.
Mr. Allen, are you there?
Joe Allen.
Does a phone number come up or no?
There is a phone number.
203-733-1392. He says he's on.
Press *6 to unmute yourself, Mr. Allen.
We can skip him, I guess, and then we'll try to
That's fine.
track him down.
No worries.
Mr. Pop?
Good evening.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, Environmental Land Solutions. I prepared the landscaping plan that you see up on the screen now. I'll just start mainly from the bottom of this sheet and kind of work.
You want to zoom it up a little bit if you can.
Thank you.
So along the street, we have shade trees or mainly oaks. There's a sight line right through here. So that's why these trees over here are along the street. And just again, they're a little bit further back. That sight line goes from this way and it kind of cuts across this way. That's why these trees are further back. And then from behind the oak trees here, we have kind of a band of evergreen trees here and some shrubs here, provide additional screening from the to the buildings to the north. If we maybe move the sheet down a little bit, and then along the perimeters of both sides, again, we just have an arborvitae hedge that will two different types. Both will probably grow, maybe 30 feet, 35 feet in height over time. There's green giants and there's emerald greens. Emerald greens are where it's a little bit narrower. Green giants is where it's wider. Up on the top of the sheet, if you slide it down. Again, an additional oak for shade tree and some additional screening to the north. And if we could slide it to the middle, and the interior of this site, just up, actually, it's just in the interior, we have, typical ornamental landscape shrubs and a few ornamental trees here, additional evergreen tree here. As far as the lighting, now we can move the plan to the right. We have 4 light poles. It's very, there's a detail right here. It's a very low level light. They're only 10 feet high. I'm assuming that there'll be a light at each door, so try not to make it too bright. So again, this is a pole I use when I think we could get by very low lighting. There's 4 poles. They're kind of located mainly around the interior of this site, and then there's one on the access way. Again, there's 4 poles, 10 feet high, dark sky. You can see the light kind of points down, and it's got that warm tone lighting. We go to the middle of the landscape plan. We can even just zoom out a little bit. As far as additional screening for the neighbors, along the Eastern property line, we could definitely create these arborvitaes here. I did have some deciduous focal trees here, flowering trees here. We could swap those out over here and put additional evergreen trees here. And then back here we have another ornamental tree. We could swap that out for another evergreen tree to get a more solid buffer along this eastern property line. Typically where you see there's a tree that's missing, it's only because there's underground detention galleries, so try to avoid placing trees over that. That's it quickly. Be happy to answer any questions.
Randolph, the engineering plan shows a stone wall and a sidewalk. It seemed to get picked up on your landscape plan.
I noticed that too. We'll have to pick that up.
Yeah.
Again, that sidewalk comes right through here, and that walkway will come right through here.
But it was a sidewalk along the street.
Yep. Yeah, right through here, and then there's that walkway that comes up.
Yeah, and there's a stone wall as well. Will the stone wall be retained?
It has to be regraded, so it will be removed.
The wall's gonna be removed.
Is there any way to keep the stone wall?
We may be able to keep portions of it, but near the driveway. So
All right.
Is it a historic stone wall?
So yeah, there are portions of it that we may be able to maintain, particularly along the western edge of the property. But over on the driveway side, I don't think we can maintain that just because we do need to grade up to get into the property and to make sure we maintain sight lines because it does kind of hump up the area a little bit.
So, yeah, I'm just looking at the black and white landscape plan. Is the sidewalk on there? It's not on there, is it?
Yeah, that may have just been because of a couple different modifications to the plan based on some feedback, but we could absolutely make sure we have coordination between all of our plans.
Would it be possible to keep the stone wall on the site, maybe rebuild it?
I mean, that's something we could probably discuss with our clients to do.
Yeah, thanks. And so with the line of trees, would it be street trees or would the sidewalk be inboard of the trees or outboard of the trees?
Maybe a combination, maybe a combination of both.
Okay.
Over at the entrance where the trees are further back, that sidewalk might be there. Sometimes it's nice to have the sidewalk maybe away from the road, although it's not that busy a street, so just to kind of walk in between. Again, we have to figure out where it meets over here.
Probably gonna be a segment of sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Corsillo.
The trees that are along Kings Drive, it looks like they jut out into the sight line a bit. Is there a reason they can't be any further back?
But they're outside the sight line right through here. So typically I try to keep the trees near the street to provide a shading of the street to kind of reduce the thermal pollution and stormwater runoff. So So the sight
Looking at
line.
a black and white version.
The sight line is right through here. The trees are just past the sight line.
If it helps, the roadway curves away from the property, like it coming down towards the screen, which is why the sight line is further down. It doesn't protrude up into the right of way much beyond our property line. It stays within the actual roadway itself at that point.
Crazy, it looks like the sight line goes into the trees.
Well, it depends on where you stop, I guess. Where's the stopping
This
point?
way, it follows.
Where's the stopping point?
Stopping point is, I believe, about 10 or 15 back
No, I'm
feet.
sorry, the exit.
Yeah, right there.
That's where you're gonna be.
Give or take, yeah.
Where's can you go to the site plan that shows the sight line, please? Civil plan that shows, well, the plan that shows the sight line.
I believe that's the survey. There's a survey.
Just blow it up, please. No worries, thank you.
So what you may have also seen as part of the canopy of the trees, I think was in the sight lines, which is above.
Well, that's my next question, is this is helping. What are the
It's more
trees
the
again?
trunk that you're concerned with, which.
They're oaks, and normally I just try to keep the trunk out of the sight line.
Okay, thank you.
Please. Any other questions? Well,
I mean, I don't need, we don't need to go into that. I've the comment about that being the canopy addresses my issue.
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it though myself, actually.
It wasn't in the site plan, it was an independent survey done by Hockman.
I was looking at landscape plan.
The
No, I
landscape
know, and
plan
I-
reflects a small portion to show.
I asked them to bring up the one that shows the sight line.
I don't know that I have.
I should have it, I can get it to you.
Fine, if that needs to be submitted, that's fine, that's,
I can have that on the landscape plan and put it like in red. So that shows up.
yeah, and I wouldn't mind making sure we need the survey with the sight line in the record as well, so. Any further questions? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mitchell?
Good evening. Steve Mitchell, traffic engineer with Mitchell Traffic Engineering. And here before you to talk about the traffic impacts of this development. Before I get into that, just working off what was just discussed, absolutely, the trees are not going to get in the sightline. That we can control that, so that, and if, we'll get a plan, but we could also accept that as a condition. That's normal. Wouldn't do that. So good evening. We're looking tonight, as you know, at a 10-unit residential development on Kings Drive on the north side. This is a local roadway. It is not a state highway, so the state does not do traffic counts there. So instead, we did traffic counts in September. From the 4th to the 10th, we took for a solid week. We counted both directions of traffic on the roadway. As you, if, do you have table 1? Kings Drive generally varies in width from 22 to 26 feet. In the location of the site drive, it's about 22 feet wide. posted at 25 miles an hour. And so we're going to focus on the morning and afternoon commuter peak hours when both the residential generation is at its highest and the roadway traffic is at its highest. This is a table that summarizes the weekdays, Monday through Friday, that we counted in the morning peak hour and afternoon peak hour and the eastbound and westbound traffic. And you don't have to be a traffic engineer to notice something unusual about this table. Eastbound and westbound in the morning are sort of typical numbers that we would expect, but then in the afternoon peak hour, we have a noticeably higher eastbound traffic flow. And talking to others in the area, that anecdotally, that is a cut-through road, and it has been used as a cut-through. As it continues to the east, it crosses over Mill Hill Road, becomes Bronson Road, and then connects to some of the Interstate 95 ramps. So it's clear that that is being used most heavily in the eastbound direction and in the afternoon when the I-95 is usually not moving very well. So, that is what we've accepted. What we did is we picked the highest eastbound flow and the highest westbound flow in the morning peak and in the afternoon peak, even though they didn't occur on the same day. And so we looked at those blue shaded volumes as the highest volumes and analyzed what the impact would be on them. So step two in the process is how much traffic will 10 units of residential development generate. Should we go to table 2? We went to, I'm sure you've all heard this before, some of the public probably has not, a database that is collected by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's a database that has been under development for more than 50 years. And it is basically actual traffic counts of actual developments of all different sizes and in all different locations. And we have refined it to the point now where we can look at different types of residential development, locations of them. Are they in an urban area? Are they in a rural area? Is there transit nearby? And what are the impacts of those things on the generation? So in order to be conservative, I picked 3 residential types of use that are in the database. And the lowest one, the lowest line on this is multifamily housing. And multifamily housing is typically apartments. It's a combination of some flats and also some townhouses. Those are all in that same database, but they're generally smaller units and with generally possibly starter couples, retired couples, many fewer families. So there's a lot less traffic generated, as you can see from the chart. We would think about 4 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon peak hour. Another set of the database is single family attached housing. And actually that's probably the closest to what this is, because each of the units is a standalone townhouse attached to others, but this would, apply to that type of development wherever. And again, these are larger units. As we saw here, they're 3-bedroom units. They're about 2,000 square feet, where many apartments are only 1,000, 1,500. So you have some families now, and you have more a possibility of a generation. So we're up to 5 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon hours. The highest generation rate of any residential development is single family houses. That has the largest number of square feet per unit. It has the largest number of bedrooms per unit. It has the largest percentage of families in a unit. And so if we looked at that, and that is not really representative of this development, but looking at a worst case, if we looked at that, we would be looking at about 9 vehicles generated in the morning and 11 in the afternoon, peak hour. Now, again, the peak hour is 1 hour. Okay, that is the hour that's the highest generation for the development, and at the same time, the highest generation generally for any road that is handling commuter traffic. And that's what we used for our analysis. We looked at that, even though it is higher than what it ought to be, if we wanted to be conservative. I point out, before I go off the slide, just to point out, so we have 9 in the morning, 11 in the afternoon we're talking about a vehicle every 6 minutes or so. Try to picture that in your mind. This is not a giant traffic generator. It's not. It's only 10 units. I know you've looked at some other developments just tonight that had 100 units. So those are much different types of generators, but this.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because
Absolutely.
we have, and I'm doing this against what I often have been telling everybody to wait till the end of your presentation, but it's there and it's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
IT is kind of the standard we have somewhat no choice, really no choice, but to look at for this type of projects.
Sure.
But help me understand, single family versus multifamily.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes it hard sometimes when I see a line like that where I have a single family where total trip generation is 9 versus other 2, at least multifamily, which more than one family, obviously, and it's got that much of a difference.
Sure. Well, think about a single family subdivision. Okay, maybe has 10 houses in it. Well, many of those houses have families. Some of them have teenagers who are driving. Many of them in today's world have both parents working. They may have babysitters coming in, daycare coming in. I know, I had 2 kids. They both got their licenses the second they could, right? And so they're contributing to that traffic generation. And if you look at a general single-family house, it generates about 10 trips in the course of a day. Okay,
9 for the peak hour, though?
well, that's 9 for 10 units. Yeah, that's about 1 a unit.
210, maybe I heard you say.
Yeah, so those are the total number for the 10 units in each of those cases.
Okay,
That's not per unit, that's per the 10 units.
no, thank
I
you.
apologize, I should have.
No, I think I should have picked up on that as well.
Yeah, so in the 10 units here, if they were 10 single-family houses, would generate roughly 100 vehicles in the course of a day.
Okay, thank you for that.
So we plug those numbers into a computer analysis. And again, this is an analysis that's used by traffic engineers throughout the United States. It was put together by the National Academy of Sciences and Engineering. And we're required to use that in Connecticut by Connecticut DOT. It gives a kind of a report card rating based on the delay experienced at an intersection. And they have ways of analyzing stop sign control or a traffic signal. And of course, signals are much more complicated, but a stop sign generally on the side street facing the stop, the analysis says, how often is there a gap in the traffic that you can pull out into traffic? And that's how it measures your ability to get out. It looks at in this case, the eastbound flow, the westbound flow versus the number of cars coming out of the driveway. And we get 2 values from that. The first is the delay. That's the actual calculated delay in seconds for that particular movement. So the eastbound and westbounds, for the eastbound, it's the left into the site as well as the throughs going by. And for the westbound, it's the right into the site as well as the throughs going by. And for the southbound, that's the driveway. So that's the driveway loop. And we can see that in the morning peak hour, we calculate out with delays of under 10 seconds. And in the afternoon, we're under 10 seconds on the main line on Kings Drive, but we just go slightly over 10 seconds for the driveway. And that's the average time it will take you to stop, find a gap, and pull out. Okay. And since the numbers, if we're doing a lot of analysis here, the numbers can get a little crazy. We simplify it into sort of a report card. Under 10 seconds is, we call it, a level of service A. And between 10 and I believe 15 seconds, it's a level of service B. And above 15, it's C, et cetera. And then it goes all the way up to an F, which is a delay of more than a minute. So that's a congested situation. The last 2 things, the VC, I'm not going to go into all of that's just a technical thing. It's how much of the capacity is being used. So if the capacity of the driveway was calculated as some number. How much of that is being used? And it's, again, very small percentages of its capacity. Why? Because there's not very many cars. It's just not a lot of cars doing it. And then lastly, we calculate the queue. What is the 95th percentile queue? 95% of the time, if you arrive at that intersection, how long will the queue be in front of you? And again, owing to the low generation, the queues are calculated as negligible. Most of the time, you're going to get there and you'll be the only car. That's just the way that calculation works. Couple of other things we looked at, sightline was mentioned. We did go out and measure the speeds on the road. And the speed is what we use to calculate the sightline. Obviously, the faster the cars are going, the further you have to be able to see. And we measured again for the entire week. We measured every car on the road, eastbound and westbound, to give you an idea. In a week's time, the eastbound volume was just under 10,000 vehicles. The westbound volume was a quarter of that, 2,500 vehicles. The speeds, we measured the speed of every car and come out with what we call an 85th percentile speed. 85% of the cars on the road were going that speed or less. So only 15% of the cars exceed that. And that's the standard that we use, because there's always someone crazy enough to go too fast, right? So you can't design for the 100th, we design for the 85th. And so we come out with, in the morning peak hour, in the eastbound direction, we came out just under 23 miles an hour. And in the westbound direction, we came out with, again, just under 23 miles an hour. So those, we looked at the actual sight lines that are there. We measured them at, I just turned the page to it fast, I missed it. 335 feet in each direction. And 335 feet is actually good for 30 miles an hour. So we should be able to easily accommodate the traffic out at the driveway.
You're exhausted.
The last thing I want to touch on briefly is, and as you know, I've been doing this for a lot of years. We do an accident study, which we now call a crash study. And we look at the number of crashes that occur in the vicinity and what the possible impact of these few additional cars would be. In the state of Connecticut, all of the state collected and local collected crash information is put into a crash repository. It's maintained by the University of Connecticut. And that crash repository takes every crash record and puts it in so that we can research a road. It's taken a lot of years for them to get it up to speed, but at this point, the repository has crash records within the last 3 months. And usually any records that come in, they're coded within 3 months. There may be some newer, but that's what we use as an average. Crash studies are usually done for a 3-year period. So we would start, this is 2025, we would go 2024, 23, and 22. That would be the period of time we gathered accidents. So I went into the repository and there were no accidents. So I expanded it to 5 years and there were none. So I expanded it back to the beginning of the crash repository, which is 2015, and there were none. Actually, there was one. It was miscoded. It was actually on Interstate 95. That they had the longitude and latitude off, and it came up as being on Kings Drive. So I called the police department because with that, I've never had that happen. I've never had none. I've had one, but I've never had none. So I called up the police department and I spent about an hour on the phone with the records clerk there, and he searched through the records with me on the line. And the last crash recorded on Kings Drive was in 2009. It was one. And there hasn't been one since. So our only conclusion can be that our few cars added to the traffic on the road will not have any impact on the crashes. So happy to answer any questions you might have. If you want to put them off till everyone else has had a turn, that's fine too. But that's, so we conclude that there's not a safety concern from this proposal.
Commissioner Levy?
From, it appears that there are 474 cars on Friday afternoon. Is that your number during the peak period? Eastbound.
I think so, yeah.
It would appear that I guess that
That's
people are
right.
getting off the post road, they're going in Kings Lane and then turning onto Kings Drive to either get to Bronson or Mill Hill. Is that reasonable to assume?
That is correct. In fact, I went and I pulled the state's records on Post Road and they had counts west of Kings Lane and east of it, and east of it, the volumes drop. So they're turning in here.
So it's a cut through on when people are getting home on Friday afternoon.
It sure is. In fact, and I have a theory. I think some of those cars are actually getting off Interstate 95 to swing around and get back on, to miss the standing still piece in between. So they're not all just local. Some of them are actually getting off and on again.
And also to miss the traffic backed up on the post.
On the Post Road, yeah, right, absolutely.
Outside of that period, it's fairly low volume.
Yeah, the morning peak hour didn't, I mean, you know, those are reasonable volumes. I mean, it's still, you're picking up some cut throughs, you know, because it's only 30 in the 30s and hits a high of 46 eastbound. But westbound, you're in the 80s and 90s. So there's some doing the reverse as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Randolph?
Related to that, Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your clear and thorough report. With regard to your table one, where you shows 474 peak hour traffic, there's also a note from the Ukrainian club citing the local traffic, a Q alert to the local traffic authority.
Yes.
Did you happen to see that?
I did see that.
So I know this is outside of the scope of this project, because the project, and you're relying on, and I just for the record, because a lot of people aren't familiar with how you calculate these things, but your traffic volumes were based upon ITE, the ITE standard.
Well, the counts were actual counts.
Oh, they were actual counts.
Those are actual, yes, yeah, we counted September 4th through 10th.
Oh, sorry, the traffic counts for the proposed project.
Yeah, for the one project, those are based on ITE, that's correct.
The existing conditions were counts.
Right, but I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on my question. But just for the record, ITE is the authority recognized by the state of Connecticut, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, because a lot of people aren't familiar with that, and I just wanted to just confirm that. But back to your table one, 474 peak PM counts, and the fact that this was raised with the Fairfield Local Traffic Authority, cited by the Ukrainian club. Would it be, do you have any ideas? I know you have a theory, and I think your theory is sound as to why the traffic's going through there. Would it be possible, and I know this is outside the remit of the project, for you to provide some suggestions on how to reduce the PM peak so it more reasonably match the AM peak numbers? And I'm not asking you on the spot here, I'm just asking you if that would be possible for you to give that some thought as a service to the neighbors who are obviously have a serious problem, and the local traffic authority is now considering this, but you have deep expertise in this area, and perhaps you could provide.
I'll certainly talk it over with my
I don't get you off.
well, you know, the people who are writing the check, I have to ask them first.
I know, I'll just add Commissioner Randolph, there's a traffic consulting firm, AKRF, and I know Marissa Torallo, they're contracted to do work for Fairfield and do a substantial amount in Fairfield counties for exactly what you're talking about. And so I think we can kind of informally take a look, but there actually is someone out there that that the town has that does a great job of this. They're excellent, and that is what they do, and they do it for Fairfield already. So,
I know this came up at the local traffic authority as documented in the Ukrainian club, but since Mr. Mitchell has deep expertise in this area and he's looking at it perhaps as a service to the neighbors.
make some recommendations.
I could certainly put together, I mean, I've done studies just like that in other places, so I certainly could put together some ideas.
That'd be great.
That's all I had, thanks.
Thank you. I think
We're good? Yeah. Okay,
Thank you all.
I think Joe Versteeg should be online. And Joe, if hopefully you are, and you can give just a brief presentation on your code review.
your architect.
I'm gonna track him down. I may just pull the architecturals up and walk them through and deal with it later.
No worries. Mr. Versteeg, are you there?
John.
Mr. Versteeg, are you there? And a quick text. There you go.
Awesome. Lost it.
Mr. Versteeg, you're on mute. And I saw that.
How's that better?
I can hear you now. Yes, you're gonna have to speak up. The sound here is soft and usual.
I understand. Apology for the technical difficulties. So the fat finger syndrome tonight. So good evening. My name is Joe Versteeg, representing the appellant in this case, or the applicant. As you know, I'm a licensed building official, certified fire marshal in the state of Connecticut. You have my CV, my experience in fire safety and building code runs a little over 40 years from my tenure in state fire marshals and as an independent code consultant. I have reviewed these documents, the architecturals, the elevations, as well as the site drawings, and provided you a letter dated April 7th, so I won't go into great detail.
Mr. Versteeg, can you just get closer to the microphone and just speak up, please?
Yeah, sorry, how's that? Is that better?
A little better, but just, it's not
Okay.
your end, it's our end. I don't know why.
Oh, I see.
Best you can, please just speak up and into the microphone.
Okay, very well. So I reviewed these, and the uniqueness of this project is that this is a project that's been designed and will be issued a building permit under the International Residential Code, for which the fire marshal has no jurisdiction. The fire safety code by state statute that contains the fire department vehicle access requirements. The fire safety code is exempted from applying to single family homes by statute. Connecticut has taken the single family home, and because townhouses are essentially attached single family homes, has decided that the buildings under the International Residential Code are outside the purview of the fire marshal, and therefore the fire department vehicle access requirements in the fire code do not apply. The requirements in the fire prevention code, which contains some similar requirements, are also not applicable because there are provisions in the beginning of the fire prevention code that tell you what the code applies to and what it does not apply to. And it clearly tells you that the code does not apply to buildings designed as 1 and 2 family homes or townhouses under the International Residential Code. That said, as was explained earlier, the turning template for the fire truck, if the requirements did apply to this project, even though they don't, the turning template documents that this project satisfies those requirements, even though they're not applicable. I'm available if you have any questions.
Questions for Mr. Versteeg? Dan, Commissioner Ford.
Thank you. I'm Mr. Versteeg. If you were looking at the plans, the fire truck that enters the property, how does it get out of this property? Does it have to be backed up? Yeah, you will find that
all of the requirements that are actually in the fire code, we comply with. We can get a fire truck within 50 feet of an exterior door. We have the walk around capability, provided by the fire department on ground. And for trucks that drive in farther, you'll see the most remote point where it drives in. We're in excess of the 150 feet. So instead of backing out, that's why the turnaround, essentially a K-turn, has been provided between the two buildings. So the fire truck can drive in, and then back into that turnaround area and then drive out again.
And just a follow-up question on that. That's doing this from memory, but so you might correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not true that the firemen are most likely to be injured when a fire truck is being reversed out of a property or doing a K-turn?
I don't know if there's any stats on that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further, sorry.
And just as a point of view, Joe Versteeg, all commercial vehicles, when they back up, have that DOT required audible alarm. So even if your back is to the truck, you can tell that a truck is backing up, and you now turn around and start to look for it. That's an added requirement under DOT for maybe the last 30 years, because there have been back over incidents in all truck scenarios, whether they're on the street or in construction sites or wherever.
Commissioner Harrison, did you have a question?
Those are fire trucks.
No, sorry.
No worries. All right, Mr. Versteeg, I don't know if you're done, but continue your thought.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm available for questions.
Questions? We said we'll reach out to our fire marshal as well.
Yes, Joe Versteeg, I would make a note that on several occasions I've placed calls to Deputy Fire Marshal Edmondson's cell phone, and as late as today I texted him, and as late as today I had his office leave him a message, but I've never had a reply. So
That's
I'm sure
okay.
he's just very busy.
That's okay. We can reach out as well.
Perfect.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have an issue getting the design up. So I'll just walk you through it, and we're gonna have to come back at some point, I think in a week or so. If you need the designer on, we'll get him back. But I'll just quickly go through the plans. You saw a couple of the color renderings. Technically, it's considered 3.5 stories, ground level garage with basement space with the garage. The 2 living stories are above, and the top is a half story, which is a pull down unfinished attic space. For context, the elevation is roughly 35 feet. And again, it doesn't really matter, but if this were not an 8-30G, the underlying zone allows a max height of about 32 feet. So it's pretty much in line with what the regs, your regs would have allowed for height, although not for stories. If you can, if you keep going, and I'll get to the garage width in a second.
19.7, I saw it.
19.7 on the inside to the stairs. It's a little further if you don't count the stairs, and it's 16 feet through the doors. So, okay. Another view. You just keep going down to the floor plans. Just so I can think too. Yeah, so that's can use. So this is above the garage. You've got the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, sort of open floor plan with the bathroom, which looks quite similar to that. We showed you some photos of the other development, which is very similar layout, and then go up to the upper floor. So we're going down, but that's all right if you want to do the basement. All right, so there's the top level master bedroom, your other 2 spare bedrooms with your 2 baths, and then go back down to the garage. There's your garage and basement space at grade. The stairs, and that we were just mentioning, that's the 19 feet 7.5 inches is the width, which is to the stairs on the inside of the garage, and the doors are 16 feet wide. I think with, then I'll just talk briefly on affordability and your 8-30G, the requirements. And I know you've heard it more often than you don't want to hear me, but I want to make a record, so I just put it on, and I'll also refer you to the application materials, which are more in depth than what I've got. So the standard on 8-30G, they have to be approved unless the Planning and Zoning Commission actually proves that the decision is necessary to protect a substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider. Those public interests must clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing and must demonstrate that those public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. That came from the Supreme Court in the 131 Beach Road case here in Fairfield. With respect to the need for affordable housing, there's many Connecticut cases with references to that need, including specific references to Fairfield. I mean, the Beach Road case from just within the last year, the Supreme Court says we begin our analysis by noting the record is replete with evidence of the need for affordable housing in Fairfield. This need has persisted for decades. The project meets the standards set forth under 8-30G, which requires 30% of the units, which is 3 to be affordable for 40 years. We do have an affordability plan. There's 2 3-bedroom units at the 60% SMI, 1 3-bedroom unit at 80 SMI. The affordable housing shortage that plagues Fairfield really applies predominantly to those who rent. In Fairfield, over half of renters are considered cost burdened, and nearly a quarter of all renters are severely burdened, which means spending over 50% of their income on rent. Although Fairfield's made progress toward the creation of housing options in recent years, the population's also increased, creating additional demand for affordable housing options. From 2000 to the present, over the past 25 years, the percentage of housing stock in Fairfield that's affordable has stayed flat at or just under 3% for those 25 years. Although house prices have skyrocketed in Fairfield. The project at 168 Kings Drive helps make some progress towards meeting those affordability goals, does bring additional needed multifamily development to Southport, helps address the current housing shortage, and complies with 8-30G in the case law interpreting that. And we are, as I sort of started this presentation and I'll end it with, we are committed to continuing to work with our neighbors to try to come up with what we can that works for us and that hopefully works for them to better the project. And we're willing to do that between now and when the time the public hearing closes. And we're even willing to continue the dialogue with the neighbors beyond that, to the extent that we can do other things that will help make them feel better about what we think is a great development and certainly a need for Fairfield. So with absent question, if there's questions, we're happy to take more questions. Otherwise, we'd like you to reserve some time for rebuttal, as well as to clean up a few items at a future meeting on some of the issues that you've asked about.
Let's first see if there's any questions for their initial presentation.
I have a few questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, attorney, are you aware of the work that Fairfield has done to create a diversity of housing? I mean, you seem to criticize us. I'm not really sure why that's the case.
I'm not criticizing you. I was literally quoting from Fairfield's own documents about where your percentages are and where they've been historically.
I mean, with 830G, you know that the numerator and you know how that works, right? As much as we add market value, when we add affordable units, we also add a ton more market value. So it's statistically, mathematically, it's not really going to work out where we're really showing the progress that we're making.
Well, right. You're never going to hit 10%, and no matter what effort is made, you're not going to hit 10%. And I'm not meaning to suggest that there's some bad faith effort on the part of this commission or the town. I'm just saying the state's mandating 10%, and Fairfield's at 3%, just about 3%, and that's where it's been.
No, but that also only includes housing narrowly defined by 830G. That's state and federal subsidies. It's not, naturally occurring. It's a very narrow definition. And I understand that's what the court recognizes, but I just don't think it's good faith in your part just to suggest that, we're bad, that we don't really do good work, because we are very focused on it. We have 1,000 units in Fairfield that have been approved yet not built.
Yeah, and I apologize. That is not what I meant to suggest. I am just telling you what the law, what 8-30G says, and we all, I think, have lots of opinions about whether it's a good law or a bad law and how it works.
I don't have an opinion whether it's good or bad. I mean, I just want to make sure that we have laws that work, but that's beyond my pay grade here, right?
I mean, to the extent that it means anything respectfully, I didn't get any sense that you were saying anything bad against the town, so.
No, I just want to be factual and just realistic on what we can, what we can't do, and what 830G does provide us. That's all. I just want to put that in the record. Thank you.
I think he was factual. I mean, unfortunately, that's what Supreme Court's, I mean, the Beach Road, I think is what you were quoting.
Yeah.
Really about the record being replete.
And Fairfield
But
affordability
I think
study.
since that, I
So-
think since that case, I think we've approved a lot more. And I think we've actually even changed our regulations to actually allow a lot more diversity of housing that won't be really counted as affordable housing under 830J. So I just want
No,
to,
and I will say, I don't do an enormous amount of work here in Fairfield, but I do a lot of land use work, and I'm impressed by the steps that you've taken as considering that you are not a city, to try to meet the affordable goals, notwithstanding that there's still a long hurdle under 8-30G to get to 10%.
no, fair enough. And no, and our own economic development director said we'll probably never get there. So that's reality. And I get it. And I respect 830G and I respect what you're doing. So just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
All right, so not hearing any other questions, at least for the initial presentation. I guess, Attorney Green, why don't you come up, because this might affect you and at least your clients. My thought is the main thing that I think is somewhat outstanding is potential new renderings of the architecture. I didn't get the sense that there's any other or major definitive or material items that are needed except for us reaching out. We can do this as a board, reach out to engineering and to the fire marshal. Was there anything else that I'm missing that you think that you'll need for your presentation aside from the architectural drawings? Potential new architectural drawings?
So we were gonna update the landscaping and slightly submit a survey.
I think we saw in the survey where the sight line was. Right?
Sidewalk too.
It's in the record.
It's just not coordinated. We were representing on the record that we were installing sidewalks
Yeah.
and a walking path, but the drawings aren't coordinated.
Yeah, but then I saw the sightline survey as well, so I mean, that seemed to be in there as well. I mean, that's cleaning it up, I think that can be done on rebuttal, but that's, the architectural is the only thing I see. My thought is we should turn to the public comments. And really, if there's any issues with see how far we get with being at 9:20-ish. Attorney Green, I'd say let your presentation go if that's what you want. If you have one, I'm not even sure. See how far we get with public comments. We have, and should there be a new rendering drawing, I guess that we can do that in for rebuttal. Second round of public comment limited to that only, and then, final rebuttal. That makes sense?
Sure. I mean, for the record, Joel Green, I'd like to hear some of the public comment before I present. And honestly, I'm very brief, but if possible, I'd like to hear, I think my client would like to hear.
I wouldn't mind having you today this evening at some point to,
Happy to do that.
yeah, how long do you think you are?
Oh, 5 minutes.
Dean? Yes.
10 at most.
All right, so I'll keep that in mind. That's fine. Let's start. I'll close the initial presentation based on at least the two items that we discussed, the architectural drawings that will be submitted potentially. And then cleaning up that landscaping one with the sidewalks. We'll turn to public comment. I'll open up the public comments. Attorney Green said he'll wait. Let's go through a few people. We'll start with the people that are in person. Any member of the public, this is your time to speak. Hold on one second. So we'll do first come, first serve, so to speak. And everybody, if we don't get a chance to talk, if you get a chance to talk this evening for whatever reason, we take we take submissions by email. They're the same weight. In a lot of ways, they're a lot helpful to us to be able to see them and to have them and refer back to them. we've been limiting public comment to 3 minutes as best we can. This is kind of the timer we have here. So I'm gonna try to enforce that a bit, considering our workload, not just for tonight but the months going forward. And should there be any additional comments you want to make outside of what's said tonight, you can certainly submit them to our email address. I don't think we're gonna get done tonight, which is fine. It'll get public comment, public time to submit emails later should they want to. So if you can just come up one at a time, start with the people that are here in person, and give your name and address. Keep your comments germane to the application, and off you go. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Graham. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Ukrainian American Club of Southport for 25 years, which means I'm doing this pro bono, and I have a brief statement to make. My home address is 155 Butternut Lane, Stratford, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Let's see, while the club is neutral on the pending application before this board, we are impacted by neighborhood traffic issues pending before the Fairfield's Traffic Authority relevant to the pending application. And what happened with the club, one neighbor has submitted a public safety claim to the Traffic Authority, Fairfield Traffic Authority, including requests such as closure of Kings Lane or making Kings Lane and making Kings Lane or a portion of Kings Drive into a one-way street based upon her complaints about rush hour traffic leaving I-95 to avoid congestion and using Kings Lane and then Kings Drive as an alternative route to move up and exit. This was the subject in part of the February 2nd, 2025 Fairfield Traffic Authority special meeting. We've pre-filed 6 exhibits. The YouTube of that entire meeting is in there. And so it addresses what I'm about to briefly summarize. At that meeting, a Fairfield Engineering Department report was mentioned with a finding that 100 cars during rush hour were using Kings Lane and Kings Drive as a bypass of congestion of I-95. They apparently did their own traffic check. It was also mentioned by the chairman of the Traffic Authority that 3 members of the Ukrainian American Club had reported that some of the requested remedies would adversely impact the club. The chairman concluded with the need to meet with both the complainant and club representatives to attempt to negotiate a resolution of the rush hour issue agreeable to all of the neighbors. Again, we've filed 6 exhibits on that. I don't know if they include the engineering report traffic count, but I'm sure if they could get it, you can get it too. The club situation is this. First of all, being a fraternal social club, the club's activities do not impact upon rush hour traffic as they are overwhelmingly on weekends. Second, the club's members, visitors, and renters come from either Greater Bridgeport or the Greater Stamford areas. For Greater Bridgeport, coming from Greater Bridgeport, they access the club by taking I-95 southbound to exit 20 Bronson Road, turning left at the end of the ramp and driving straight down Kings Drive to the club. From Greater Stamford, they drive up to northbound up to exit 19 and then access the Post Road to turn left onto Kings Lane and then left onto Kings Drive to the club. So any closure or making one-way portions of these 2 streets, making portions of these two streets one-way or dead ends would irreparably harm the club. On the other hand, the club has no objections to other potential resolutions such as speed bumps or posting signs prohibiting through traffic on Kings Drive or Kings Lane during rush hour periods. Or if they choose to, at all times, ban through traffic and permit only local traffic, that would be fine too, so long as it's understood that club members, visitors, and renters would constitute local traffic. And hopefully that would resolve the rush hour problem. So our request is the board to, Well, obviously this is gonna continue, so you've already granted that request. We intend to contact and accept the invitation of the Fairfield Traffic Authority to try and negotiate an agreement which will keep our access, but also do something to resolve the rush hour problem that everybody seems to have to agree on, and they all further agreed it's coming from congestion on I-95. So we're gonna work on that, and it's obviously the traffic issue is what we are here for. And that's really, so we're providing you with our viewpoint and our experience, and if we could work something out with the Fairfield Traffic Authority in the way of an agreement, hopefully we can not only solve the rush hour traffic, but it would be of interest, one would think, to the board with all the discussion on traffic tonight. So that's all I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Siganovich. I reside at 187 Kings Drive. So I'm here to express my strong opposition to this project. This project is going to add 10 housing units, a single lot, effectively doubling the number of homes on our small street, has approximately 10 residences. Before knowledge of this project, we have been working with the town, the Fairfield Traffic Authority, on our traffic concerns. So the town did a traffic study, which showed that we do have a serious traffic issue on our block. On a weekly basis, I've narrowly avoided accidents by vehicles speeding down the street. I get honked at, I get screamed at by impatient drivers as I try to back into my own driveway. Similarly, my children are in fear of walking down the street due to safety concerns. Without sidewalks, my daughter's unable to wait for the school bus in the morning at our scheduled stop on our street. Our neighborhood already faces significant challenges with traffic congestion, narrow roads, no street parking, and lack of sidewalks. Adding this level of density is only going to exacerbate these issues and pose serious safety risks, particularly for children and pedestrians. There's also concerns regarding capacity of existing sewer and drainage systems and light pollution to adjacent houses. Importantly, this location is not proximate to public transportation, shopping centers, or essential amenities, making it unsuitable for high-density developments and affordable housing accessibility. This project threatens the character of our neighborhood and will likely have a negative impact on our property values. I respectfully urge the board to consider these concerns and deny this application, or consider limiting the size and scope of the development and include a provision for the addition of sidewalks, or also in conjunction with Fairfield Traffic Authority, turning the street into a one-way street to mitigate our traffic concerns. The additional 3 affordable units that will come with this project should not outweigh the negative impact that this development will have on our streets. And I urge the board to visit our street to look at the proposed location, particularly during evening rush hour when traffic is backed up the entire length of our street. Thank you for your time and the work that you guys do on this commission.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ed Zigmont. I reside at 60 Kings Drive. I'm almost a lifelong resident there. I am 3rd generation on Kings Drive. A few things. As far as the applicant, with other applications that were coming in, there's been a total decimation of the property. All trees with the exception of one large oak, which looks like it's going to be coming down, and has been completely decimated. A few things with the site plan itself. Fire department access. Mr. Versteeg is correct. It does fall under the IRC, International Residential Code. I am very familiar with it. I am a retired fire marshal, still hold my certification, and an assistant building official. I have a concern with the backup
where they show the truck backing in, it does not appear to be of adequate length. It does look like with the area between the buildings, looks like it's fully paved. So the turning radius is good. However, they show parking for 6 vehicles. Boy, that sure does look like, when it's empty, it sure does look like a place for two or three additional more. There's no justification or time when there's an emergency. So that's something, in my opinion, that must be considered. One thing that I see, 830G is great. Affordability is great. But looking at the plan, what do you see? Parking garage, stairs up. Into the residential unit, stairs up. So they're discriminating against anybody that's disabled? How is a disabled person going to get into that structure? It's just something to consider. Another thing that's been addressed is the traffic study. Okay, traffic is and has gotten worse. And I don't care where you go in this town, traffic is terrible at best. Kings Drive has turned into a cut through thanks to our computer generated apps. But every street in town is the same way. Coming through Southport Center is a nightmare. I had to go across town. 95 was backed up, so I cut across. And right through Umpqua Road, Barlow Road, it's all the same. So, it's, Kings Drive is not the only place, so, but that's just some of the concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
And ladies. I have trouble speaking publicly. I'm a nurse in the state of Connecticut. I feel more comfortable in an emergency room or operating room coding somebody than actually speaking publicly.
Yes, I'm sorry, just use the
It's
microphone.
very hard. I'm like already having racing heart. But thank you, commissioners, for being here. I just want to share, I live at 186 Kings Drive, which is right next door, west side of this project. I first got a call from Christopher Coco asking me about my property, asking if he could purchase this property, not knowing why he would want to purchase the property. And in conversations after, I was then apprised of the situation that I thought maybe he wanted my house. It's an 1860 house. I live alone. The father of my children died of a terrible cancer. So here I am maintaining the property and the home for several years. I've been a nurse in the state of Connecticut over 35 years. I work both at Yale and as well as Greenwich Hospital. I have to be smack in the middle when I'm responding to emergencies at either or. And I also perform visiting nurse for Waveney Home Care. So I'm always needing to leave to actually attend my jobs at the hospital as well as provide visiting nurse. So in terms of emergencies alone, let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm sort of like around, still speaking. When Mr. Coco asked me about my property, I then said, do you really love my house? What would you want to do with my property? He said, I demolish your house. You won't need your house when you rid of your home. So he offered me half of the market value of my property because he didn't want the house. He's just going to knock it down. I said, well, where would I go at my age and still working? He said, go wherever you want. I don't really care. So this is the type of person I was dealing with. later on, I see people cutting down my trees, demolishing part of my property, invading my property, and I actually had to put up a split rail fence to sort of, I had to do, perform two, surveys on my property to ensure that that would preserve the rights to my property. So the entire year has been very difficult. Getting through the street has been hard when trucks were in and out. It's a very small street. Trucks were in and out, taking down trees. We have a blind curve on the street, so specifically that part where all the trees are very nicely looking with the canopy over above, you can't even see around the corner. So if you're walking down the street, my mother was almost killed on that street. This car came careening down. There was a car accident. A person hit my car, and I actually let them go. It was a fender bender, but that was at the stop sign on the street. Very noteworthy, nobody has raised the issue or discussed that there are 96 units being erected right now in the lower part of Bronson, which goes right into Kings Drive. 96 units. I don't know how many people per unit that monster building, there's so many components to it. So that's the entrance ramp to the northbound lane on I-95. I always considered that part of Kings Drive, but in actuality, it's like a third of a mile away. It's the very beginning of Bronson. So Kings Drive feeds right into Bronson. But here's this huge building, which is already erected. So where are all those people going to go? And where are those cars going to access? Not I-95, because I guess they'll make the bend around, but the post road, should they need to go to the post road. When the trees were removed, my concern also is the way the land has been handled next door. I am sure virology wise, from a viral standpoint, virology wise, there were so many stagnant ponds all left there, construction dumpsters left, on my property. So in terms of meeting with the neighbors, nobody has met with me, and I'm the neighbor next door. I'm in the prime location of this huge impact of the building. But I'm sure you guys are really tired being here and listening to people complaining and things, trying to make it work. I am very pro affordable housing, low income housing. I performed visiting nurse for years as well. I do many modalities, many things in nursing. And it's a wonderful feeling to go into the affordable housing units and know you've really helped a person out because nobody else could get to them because they're homebound or they're on hospice or they need IVs and they can't easily get to an infusion center. That's very important to me. By the same token, quick responses to emergencies. I'm concerned about this building, putting myself aside, forgetting about me, right? I've lived many years in life. So young people living in that building, if there's an emergency, especially an asthma attack on a young person, there's no time for asthma. You need to get there. You need to, intubate or get an airway quickly. How are fire trucks going to get in and out? That's probably my biggest concern. Being a nurse, I'm more of a humble person than a person, I need this. I could probably live in its tent if I had to. But quite honestly, getting a fire defender, paramedics, EMS, when you have a heart attack alone, you don't have 5 minutes, you have less than 5 minutes. The heart can't, withstand a long period of time. So if the traffic is backed up, EMS can't get there, paramedics can't get there. I guess I'll be running down the street to help. Actually, Mr. Coco fell in the driveway next door one day. He actually fell. And my neighbors pulled me away because they knew I was going to help him get up. They said, don't go to him. I said, why would I not? You could be my arch enemy. I'm still going to save your life or help you. That's just the way I'm set up. So I don't have disrespect for him for trying to be, put in affordable housing units or whatever. But one, I guess he's going to put it. But what I do oppose is the fact that there won't be an allowance of access to these buildings, the one at 96 units, just a pittance down the road, or this building. I could get out. I could just walk down Kings Lane, but these other people won't be able to get access quickly. I think that's wrong. If he could lower the building, again, I'm not even opposed to the building project, but if he could lower it to 5 units, that's respectable. I think that would allow for a circular driveway situation for access of emergency personnel. I actually go to Maplewood Southport. There was a day I was there. There were so many cars parked where fire trucks need to be, where it said no parking, fire zone. Everybody's parked up there. These are elderly people, senior citizens, not all elderly, but majority elderly. And they need to go back and forth to the hospital. And the fire trucks were trying to get in and they couldn't because it was all parked up. I took pictures and I sent it to the fire department. And I said, I guess you see what you deal with. Can you do something about this? I see,
Yeah, if you can just finish up, sorry, it's just we're up to 7 minutes.
Sure. I'm done.
Did we not get her name? Oh, I'm sorry, could we just have your name and address, please?
Yes, it doesn't matter, no way. I almost feel like it doesn't matter. I shouldn't matter. You know, I'm here, I'm a public servant, basically. I shouldn't matter that much. I mean, it's what I'm about. My name is Mary Beth Burgess.
Well, thank you. We just asked for names and addresses.
186.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Helen Coatsworth. I live at 120 Kings Drive. I'm on the property to the east of the proposed development, and I have been for over 22 years. My home is my nest egg, and I'm counting on it to retire with. But now there's a proposal for 10 units in 3 buildings to be built over the property, which is just under an acre, if I'm not mistaken. And every other property on the street is a single-family home, as is the existing dwelling.
Can I ask a question, just because
Yes.
I see a paper
Most of
statement?
it's not
Well,
this
I was
long.
just gonna say, if it's gonna be,
No,
you know,
I'll
long,
make
I would-
it, I'll try to keep it as close to 3
which is
minutes.
fine, I mean, hit the highlights and please feel free to submit it, so we have the
Absolutely.
entire thing for the record.
Thank you for that. I know that they can put more units on that property, but we as a neighborhood were hoping that they would work with us to fit into more of the aesthetic of the neighborhood and the community and keep it as a sort of quiet, narrow lane and not be so obtrusive. I think the scale of the buildings being proposed dwarfs all the other homes on the street. Mere feet from my fence line is the biggest of the 3. The 4 family dwellings towering 3+ stories high. The back windows of those would look not only into my garden, but into my bathroom and bedroom windows. I have a seasonal outdoor shower that now can't be used. I've also been growing a beautiful garden in my backyard for the last 22 years, which will have all of its light blocked. Now, talking about the traffic, I previously stated that our street is narrow and quiet, but since Waze and Google Maps, we've seen an unbelievable uptick, and there are records with the Traffic Commission. I recall the number was something like 15,000 cars in 10 days went down our street in the afternoon in one direction. Some of these numbers cited about speeding 23 miles an hour don't account for the averages, and I'm a scientist, so I understand what averages do. Some people are going 60 miles an hour and then slam on the brakes because there is a line of cars going for the better part of 100 yards of that block. So to take an average at 23 miles an hour is because part of it is at a snail's pace. These vehicles that number in the thousands weekly are all sorts of passenger vehicles, cement mixers, 18-wheelers, coach buses, you name it, throwing litter, other personal debris out of their windows on occasion. And when it backs up every afternoon, which it does, I can't exit my driveway to the left because it is too far backed up with cars lined up. I am halfway through the block. I am not near the stop sign by any measure. I have to wait for someone to let me through. When I try to take a right out of my driveway, I can't count the number of times that I've almost been hit or I've had to slam on my brakes because the cars careening around the corner don't see me. Because the fact of the matter is, at speed, a driver can't see me until they've already rounded the corner. The sight line being proposed is for that driveway in the corner, but my driveway comes out. I wish that graphic was up for number 7 because where the driveway serpentines out, my driveway exits right there. I'm already having an impossible time, dangerously impossible time getting out. And now I expect SUVs and other vehicles to now be further blocking any chance of me getting out into traffic, which is already a struggle. My mailbox post has been repeatedly hit, been repaired, it's been replaced, and it's been hit again. It even currently has a broken handle because dualies with large wing mirrors keep snapping it off. Due to the bend in the road being where it is and the topography of the land blocking the line of sight, it is already dangerous to pull out onto the street. The design being proposed as a driveway at the curve on the other side from me. Currently proposed, this would be a blind curve for the new homeowners or new residents of 168. The street itself and where my driveway exit out onto King's driveway are already dangerous without even entertaining the additional 24 or more cars entering and exiting right there. Someone's going to get hit and hurt. I have no doubt about it being if, but when. It is a busy road, despite the assertions of the traffic survey gentleman here. Those numbers are cited, do not accurately represent the serious numbers of vehicles that we have coming from all over the state, out of state, that have no business coming down our road and littering. Never mind the dangerous aspects. My dog was almost hit by a car today as I was getting ready to come to this meeting. The property itself, the police have been giving tickets out every Thursday afternoon, and they have been giving them out with great zeal. I would encourage the committee to ask them for the numbers of tickets they've been giving out for people running the stop sign at the junction of Kings Lane and Kings Drive. I applauded them the other day. The first day they did it, I think they gave out more than 25 tickets or warnings perhaps. Now, the property itself has a massive drainage problem. Despite, again, the assertions of these gentlemen here, I have noticed for myself that every time there is heavy rain, there is a puddle on that lasts for weeks and weeks. It was frozen over the winter time and it remains there. Well, I think it's evaporated now, but it's just a matter of time before the next rain will flood that property out. I have no faith in the assertion that they will be rendering the neighborhood in the back drier than they currently are. In fact, if anything, I feel like it's going to upset the natural drainage that already exists, as insufficient as it is. I can't say I trust the surveys based on what I've heard about I've seen about the drainage. I believe that the building will be built potentially with inadequate drainage. And then where will we be when we are left to sue these people and fight and pay for all the surveys to undo the damage that they've done? I think that a lot of times these projects get approved with just the barest hint of a survey that passes muster. But these people are getting what they pay for when they're surveys. So if you're paying a guy to tell something in a survey, numbers can be fudged just within the truth, but to lean against the favor of the applicant. And I think that's I want to be on the record as saying that's what I think is going on here. The new homeowners, those of us surrounding the property, will be left picking up the bill and picking up the pieces and mopping up our basements when that happens. I don't think that's fair. I think these guys get away with this stuff all the time, and I think that's what we're going to be looking at. I don't have the time or the money or the inclination to fight these guys for the next 10 years. I have a daughter who's in 10 months worth of leukemia treatment. She has another 11 months left to go. So if there's any aspect of health and safety, the health and safety of my daughter trumps these guys' willingness and need to make a buck. And so if there's anything about this, I'd like this proposal to be at least scaled back or stopped in its entirety, because she deserves to be able to go through the rest of her treatment in peace without a massive construction development going on next door. I'd like to just mention, finally, I'd like the lights to be turned down, that they have a lot of lights being on, and it's already a very bright neighborhood. Finally, I'd like the 4-unit building both reduced in size and breadth and moved away from my fence, closer towards the center of the property. I'd like the driveway being proposed to be reconfigured further away from my driveway. I'd like the outdoor lights to be removed entirely or scaled back substantially on timers to shut off at a decent hour or to be dimmed substantially. And last, I really want my daughter to be able to fight cancer in peace. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, hi. I'll be brief. My name is August Sarno. I reside at 55 Mill Hill Road in Southport. My house is on the corner of Mill Hill and Kings Drive. I just wanted to bring up some points that I don't think it was brought out in the traffic report. You have 10 units with 3 bedrooms, that could generate anywhere from 20 to over 30 students or children. That generates a lot of bus traffic. I don't think any discussion was brought up in regards to busing and how these children are going to be safe coming in and out of that facility. So I think the traffic report right now indicates they do not plan to make any improvements on the streets, no widening, no sidewalks, which is a concern. I think we only have 1 bus stop at my quarter on Mill Hill, across from the condo, across the street from me, that stops, the bus stops there. But there's no sidewalks between this area and Mill Hill Road. I have a concern about the drainage because I looked at the plans and it appears to me that this site has a lot of rock outcropping. And I don't know if you're aware, but to my knowledge, there's no storm sewer along Mill Drive at all. So what they're planning to do is retain all that water on site. So the question is, how much fill material and what is the grading condition to make that coverage over these drainage areas and what impact that would have? So I see a lot of water coming out of that driveway because of the slopes and coming out onto Kings Drive with no sewer, no storm sewer at all. So the buses, they're a concern for me, the grading, and particularly the rock on site, because that would involve a lot of blasting and construction and depend on if the units are gonna sit on top of that rock or they have to go down several feet. That is definitely gonna impact the drainage and grading on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Green, were you serious about that 5 minutes?
I can, give it a try or whatever the.
I know we're coming back, but why don't you start and see where we are in a few minutes? Trying to milk every minute I can.
Yeah, no, I
with everything else
appreciate
going
that.
on.
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. And it's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of the Sasquatch Association for Southport Improvement, which has been in existence for over 130 years. And Sasquatch is, and I've appeared before the commission before on behalf of Sasquatch, and I know many of you are familiar with it, but the mission of Sasquatch is to preserve the historic character of Southport, but also to improve the day-to-day lives of the residents of Southport, including the residents who live on Kings Drive. And this is an application of great concern for Sasquatch, and you've heard a lot of great comments from the residents of this neighborhood. And in order to support those, support these residents, first of all, we join in many of the concerns that they've expressed, but in an effort to sort of address those issues, we reached out to the applicant. And this past week, we had a meeting and we've had a dialogue with the developers and with council. And we've had a really productive dialogue. And we join in requesting that the development be reduced to a smaller and less imposing development. For all of the reasons that you've heard tonight, we support the neighbors once again and their concerns, and we feel that the project should be limited in size and scope. we, our ask of the developer, and obviously I've appeared before this commission on many developments and on many 8-30G applications. We all recognize, everyone in this room recognizes the need for affordable housing. But once again, we also have to be mindful of the impacts of these developments on public health and safety, but also on the quality of lives of neighboring residents. So we had asked, specifically as a pointed ask, we have asked the developer to reduce the size of this development to 6 units, being mindful of sort of the business side of this equation, but also, once again, to seek a meaningful reduction that make this, I always speak of the concept of a development that everyone can be tolerably unhappy with in these instances where we're confronted with 8-30G. So we've asked them to reduce the development size once again to 6 units. We had a dialogue and the developer has agreed to review their landscaping plan because, as you can see from the site plans, their houses are in really close proximity, particularly on what I'm going to call the east side of the property, on the right side as you're looking at the proposed development, but also to buffer the appearance from the street and from the park that Sasquatch has directly across the street and in the area. And we've to create a development that is more in character with the architectural characteristics of the neighborhood and other houses in the neighborhood. And there is an architectural theme in the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that's been there for a long time. And so at present, the applicant has agreed to review the landscaping plan, to accept input from Sasquatch, and I presume from the neighbors on architecturals, and to present, once again, some enhancements on landscaping. We have made this request to reduce the size of the development, and we look forward to appearing before the commission on another date after we've had an opportunity to review what the applicant comes back on that. And with that, I'll and look, we recognize the challenge of 8-30G. It's obviously not an application that the neighborhood is happy with for just, again, based on its size and scale. But, we're doing our best to support the neighbors and to sort of, again, reach something that can be tolerable. So thank you for your time and patience. And I know I'm running over a little bit, but not too bad.
Thank you. Our normal curfew is 10 o'clock. I went a little over just to see if we can, like I said, get as much progress as we can. I think it makes sense, Attorney Blank, come on up. I think it makes sense to certainly adjourn this evening, leave public comment open. To the extent that the applicant makes any new submissions with the architecture or the landscaping with the
Coordinated drawings.
thank you, yeah, coordinated drawings, thank you. Make those certainly, when's our next, when are we continuing this to?
April 29th, if possible, which is next Tuesday.
So to the back to, you know how we are. We're trying, yeah, I mean, so we're trying to get this done. I don't know how helpful that is to you with timing. To the extent that they can be submitted the Monday before, that would be ideal. At the very least to us, certainly talk to that, you can certainly talk to neighbors and beforehand. But anything that's gonna be submitted to us, at least Monday, the latest if possible, Tuesday morning, it is what it is. So my thought would be even though we'll be in public comment, have you make a little presentation, continue with public comments, ask those that have already spoken, only refer to what's been done. Anybody that's new gets a free rein, so to speak. And then we'll go to rebuttal, if that makes sense. Best we can, and it's fluid. We're flexible here.
And if any of the neighbors want to talk to me or anybody on our
I
team.
got your email. I just
find us now and we can exchange contact information.
All right, fair?
Yeah.
Someone have a plan? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for the professional and civil discussion. I will continue the hearing until next week, the 29th, and adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.